Hey everyone, welcome back to the end of Season 5, our finishing coverage for what has been quite a season, a roller coaster of a season really. Ups and downs, highs and lows, from eyes wide with surprise to eyes rolled in disgust. There was less gratuitous sex and nudity, but more sexual violence, more reliance on the actors, which is great, but less reliance on the source material, which of course is not great. I thought the music was the best it's ever been, and I think I speak for all book readers when I say this was the first season where a lot of us just had no idea what was going to happen. And that is, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not. But I personally enjoyed that feeling of newness. Now, Season 5 also featured the highest rated Game of Thrones episode of all time, and the lowest, Hard Home and Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, respectively, episodes 8 and 6. We lost some major characters, and beloved minor ones, too. There were lots of spoilers for the books, though there is much debating over what has or hasn't actually been spoiled. This is confusing in and of itself because we talked earlier this season about the fact that we've really lost sight of what a spoiler even is anymore. So what we haven't lost sight of, I hope, is how to have fun with our favorite fandom in whatever form it comes. That's what we're aiming to capture here with our Season 5 awards show.
Yeah, so hello and welcome to another episode of History of Westeros podcast, a podcast dedicated to George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire book series, as well as HBO's Game of Thrones. This episode, of course, is discussing the television show, but it is as it relates to the books, and thus it has spoilers for all of the books, including The Winds of Winter, so if you are wary of those, then I would close this episode now.
Right on. Now, Song of Ice and Fire is such a vibrant community. We've gotten to know over the years several other content creators, and we managed to tempt a few luminaries to join us today. So we're going to go around in a circle here and introduce all of our great guests. Of course, as you see here, Ashaya is back again, which is great. But we also have our returning friends from Radio Westeros. We have Lady Gwyn.
Hello, great to be with you once more.
And, of course, Yolkboy.
Hi guys, really glad to be back for this Game of Thrones orgy.
Yeah, that's right. We also have Stefan Sasse. Tell us a bit about yourself, Stefan, and your place in the fandom.
My place in the fandom. Hi everyone. It's my first time on the podcast. I'm an essayist for the Tower of the Hand, and I have my own blog at nerdstream.blogspot.com, and I've written extensively over the series and the books likewise.
Right on, yeah. We're certainly fans of your material here as well. And we also have the FriggenItalian Steve, the original founder of History of Westeros podcast. Been a while, huh, Steve?
Yeah, it's been a minute, yep. But yeah, I'm here, and I'm very happy to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Right on, Steve. It's good to have you. And last but certainly not least, the Don, Tony Teflon. How you doing, Tony?
What's going on? If you don't know, you already know. I'm the Don Tony Teflon, from House Teflon, Teflon 316. We pull the strings, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm a big fan of everybody on the panels. I have watched, listened to everything, the Boiled Leather podcast, everything out here. So I'm a big fan of everyone. It's just a blessing to be here with you to do this.
All right. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. We've come up with a lot of great questions for our award show format here, which is basically going to be just a lot of best of, worst of, favorite, least favorite moments for the season. We've come up with some very straightforward questions and some that are a little sneaky and fun. So a few bits of news to get out of the way before we start. First of all, we're going to proceed through this episode with all the questions, like I said. At the end, however, we're going to have our credits, and following the credits, we're going to have a discussion amongst the 7 of us regarding the casting discussions. So if anyone doesn't want to be spoiled on casting news, there's quite a bit of juicy information there. You'll want to drop out during or after the credits, so keep an eye out for that. A couple other things we're working on over here at History of Westeros. The next few episodes you'll expect to see from us. We've got 3 in the pipeline, as well as a lot of others that are farther out in the pipeline, but the most 3 immediate ones are the next episode of the Blackfire Rebellions, the Tragedy of Summerhall, and we're also going to do a support group episode, which is a book-centric episode about dealing with TV show changes and things that we may or may not have been spoiled on, and how to deal with what's coming in Season 6 as well. So that'll be fun. Also, I want to correct myself, something Sean and I talked about in our show-only review on Monday. We were wondering about whether HBO had ever done an animated series before, and some of you attentive watchers and listeners pointed out that HBO did Spawn, the animated series.
And if I were here, I would have pointed out that they did Happily Ever After.
Right on.
Fairy tales for every child. Very diverse fairy tales. So they've at least done 2.
That's cool. So yeah, it is in their wheelhouse. Maybe it's been a while, but they've shown a willingness to do it in the past. Not sure if they'll do it again, but that'll be fun. Also, we have acquired a copy of Game of Thrones Monopoly, and we had an internet outage last night, so we checked it out. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really well made. The pieces are wonderful. So we're going to be giving away a few copies on social media, so you're going to want to keep an eye out for that coming up. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and everything to make sure you're in the loop for that. Also, I want to correct something I said about TWoW, which is going to give us, which is a perfect segue to our first question for everybody. And what I said was, there was some news from Hamburg where George did a reading of a chapter from The Winds of Winter. It's a chapter he's already read before, an Ariane chapter, so nothing new there. But he did comment briefly on how much progress he's made on The Winds of Winter. The information came to us, well, it didn't come, it was, you know, a lot of times how secondhand information works out, it wasn't completely accurate. What I thought I heard was that he had about 500 more manuscript pages to write, which doesn't bode well for TWoW being out before next season. However, that was wrong. It was a joke he made about saying he read the Arian chapter and said, oh, I still have 1,500 manuscript pages to write, as if that was the only thing he had written. So it was a joke completely taken out of context. So with that in mind, I'm going to get everyone's opinion or / guess on when they think The Winds of Winter will be out, not just whether it'll be out before next season or not, but, you know, in general. So I'll start. I'm going to say it's a roughly 50-50 that he gets it out before next season. What do you think, Shay?
Whenever it comes. I'm in no rush in particular, to be honest myself. It'll come whenever. I'll be happy.
Right on. Okay, Lady Gwyn, what do you think?
Fairly optimistic that he'll get it out by March, which would mean finishing by the end of this year. It may be a 75% chance.
Okay. Matt, or yolkboy rather, what do you think?
I think that I'm optimistic too. Maybe I hang around with Lady Gwyn too much, but I'm optimistic, and I'm going to go for February.
Okay, cool. Stefan, what do you think?
I'm going for 2016, but not necessarily for the season.
All right, Steve, what do you think?
I'm shooting for the end of the year, actually.
Oh.
Ooh, the most optimistic yet. All right, I like it. Tony, what do you think?
I think he'll definitely have it out before the season starts next year, without a doubt. I think he's got more written than people give him credit for. He writes in big chunks, so I think he'll have it out. I think he's got a lot there, you know.
Cool. Well, let's hope. I certainly am pulling for myself to be wrong. I'm hoping for the optimistic guesses to be right.
I'm just hoping that they have enough time to edit it properly. They're going to rush it so much, it's going to come across, but whatever.
It'd be amazing if it came out during the TV season. I wonder if they'd even would do that. I wonder if they'd be like, nah, let's wait. Let's hold off another couple of weeks. I wonder if they'd even try that. That would be interesting.
Big book release seasons, other than holidays, seems to be January and July. So, not that they're bound to that, but
yeah, that's true. All right, well, shout out to everyone who's watching us live here today. That's great that you could join us. You get to see the episode a little early, and for everyone else watching a little later, watching or listening later, maybe you'll be able to make the next live event. We're certainly going to have a few more in the future. There'll be book-centric topics when we do them. We're going to try to make it a little more regular thing, but we're still working out the details on how often. So y'all send us feedback if you have ideas or suggestions as far as that goes. Okay, so we're going to start with a simple question. First of all, where does this season rate? I'm not expecting everybody to rate the seasons 1 through 5, but is this your favorite, least favorite, or somewhere in the middle? Shea, we'll start with you this time.
I'd say it's probably down there with with season 2 for me. I'd have to go back and really rewatch season 2 to be fair to it. Right now, I want to say season 5 is worse, but I'd have to really go back to season 2. There were some things I really hated.
Okay. Lady Gwyn, what do you think?
I agree with that 100%. I would have to watch season 2, but it's kind of, neck and neck.
Kind of in that range, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, yolkboy, what about you?
I'll say it's my least favorite season, but I do remain philosophical. I think that, in a show that's going to have 7 or 8 seasons, you do often see a drop around the season 5. It's happened even with great shows like The Wire had a couple of dodgy seasons. So let's hope they can pull things up a notch next year.
Right on. Okay, Stefan, what do you think?
I have actually rewatched season 2 not that far ago for a book project. So season 2 still remains the worst in my opinion, and I would put season 5 in the middle space where you can't really make out which one ranks which compared to the rest of them. So it's not that bad. No.
Okay. And Steve, how about you?
I'm pretty much in the middle. But season 2 did kind of stink for me, but it had its moments, I would say, but I wouldn't go anywhere near close to calling it my favorite.
Okay, Tony.
As bad as season 2 was, this was worse. And this was
wow.
Of the middle, and that's the way I feel, and that's it. That bad pussy.
Oh.
Bad pussy says it all.
Wow.
That says it all. That says it all. That's
The
it.
line that sums it up for you. That was, if we had included category for worst line of the season, that would be a nominee for
Yeah,
sure.
that would be the winner.
I think it would
Well,
be
yeah.
de facto winner. The worst line from probably the worst plot line. But we'll see about that. First of all, well, I was going to do favorite plot line first, but with that segue, let's do least favorite plot line. So the nominees for least favorite plot line are the Sons of the Harpy, just Dorne in general, all of it, the Sansa Ramsay Littlefinger thing, and then Stannis' campaign. Now, that's interesting because some of these things there's different reasons to dislike them. Some just because we're disappointed with how it went, some just because it was just low quality. With acting and writing not being very good. So it's a lot of reasons, so it's kind of a matter of what stands out to you as the most as what you dislike. We'll start with Lady Gwyn this time. What do you think, Lady Gwyn? Least favorite plot line this season?
Really torn between Dorne and Sons of the Harpy. And I'm going to have to go with Sons of the Harpy just because it didn't make any sense to me. I mean, Dorne, as bad as it was, had some, some logic or clarity to it. So.
Okay, yolkboy, what do you think?
I think Dawn was truly forgettable this year. I think, I'm not the first. I think a lot of people think this. And you can take very little away from it, really. It was just not very good.
Okay, Stefan?
I think there can be no question it's Dorne. It was so bad, everything else pales in comparison.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, I found most of it to be dry, the entire season. It just wasn't interesting. With the exception of we finally get to see Jon Snow's stabbing at the end. That was it.
Yeah. So you think Dorne was your least favorite, or was
All of it.
Dorne and Sons of the Harpy storyline.
All four.
It all stunk.
Tony,
I'm sorry, but it did.
Nah.
All right.
Tony, what about you? What do you think?
I think there is no doubt that it's Dawn. I mean, it was terrible. Terrible. It really was. It was just it was a waste of time. The fight scene was the worst fight scene I've seen. I mean,
right.
I've seen better fight scenes in Arrow than that.
Well, I'll close it out and say that I agree that Dorne was the weakest. I almost think we didn't even need to bother with this question.
You didn't even ask me my answer.
You got to sink in. Oh yeah, what's your? I swear I did skip you.
As much as I would like to not say Dorne because I would like to say that the scenery was good enough for me to salvage it, but I honestly didn't like how they did the scenery either. I didn't think it looked like water gardens. I didn't think the Northern Ireland coast they were on looked like Dorne. So Dorne too, sadly.
Okay. 6 out of 7 picked Dorne. Well, Steve sort of picked everything. So.
Yeah, I picked the whole thing.
So the winner is Dorne. Unsurprisingly, the winner is Dorne. Okay, so now let's get positive. Let's say favorite plot line by location. We'll say here's the nominees. We have Meereen, including the road to Meereen. So that includes Tyrion, Jorah, Varys, and their journeys on the way. So that kind of pumps it up a little bit because I know that was a fun part. King's Landing includes all the stuff with the High Sparrow and Loras and Marjorie and Olenna. So there's a lot of good and bad there. And then we have Winterfell in general with the Boltons and Sansa and Theon. And we have Stannis in the north with his whole campaign, including his time at the Wall. And then we have the Wall itself, but excluding the Stannis aspect, just the Night's Watch itself, including Hardhome. So this time we'll start with Yolkboy. Yolkboy, favorite plot line?
My favorite
King's
plot
Landing,
line.
Winterfell, Stannis, or the Wall?
I think I'm going to go with King's Landing. I thought that as a plot line, you know, not individual plot points, but as a plot line, the Cersei thing was coherent. They spent time on it to develop it. The High Sparrow was a great addition. There was tension, and I thought the Walk of Shame at the end, and also the introduction of Robert Strong, was done really well. So I give it to King's Landing this year.
Okay, cool. Stefan?
I think the Wall, especially given how bad the storyline at the Wall has been in previous seasons, I think you have to give it a shout out this season because it was comparably even stronger, but still the best episode by far was at the Wall with Hardhome. Jon Snow was his Jon Snowiest ever, and generally this was the first season in which I really cared what happens at the Wall. Oh. And in which it wasn't just a thing that, oh yeah, that happened too, where it really took center stage and came into its own. So yes, the Wall.
All right, Steve, what do you think?
I really did like the Wall storyline, but I'm gonna have to give it to King's Landing, mostly because we finally got to see Cersei's Walk of Shame.
That was one of the better scenes of the season too.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony, what about you?
I think that the payoff in King's Landing was probably the best that we got in the season, but I'm going to give it to Meereen because Tyrion and Jorah, to me, worked the best this season overall more than any other two people in the story together. I like their story together, seemed to fit the best.
Okay. Nice.
They did a good job.
So far. And Lady Gwyn, what about you?
I'm going to have to go with King's Landing. High points definitely in Meereen and the Wall. I agree with those, but King's Landing as a whole, every scene there had some good.
Okay,
Shaya? To it.
Yeah, Stefan made some good arguments for the Wall. He almost convinced me there because it's true that is the most I've ever cared about the Wall and all that. But King's Landing. I was just every scene I like. I don't know any scene that I really disliked there. And I really liked Tommen.
Yeah,
cute little
Tommen was good. Felt bad for him. It was good.
Yeah, I felt bad for him when he was at the Sept, getting turned away.
It's one of those things where even if you've just hated the Lannisters for so long, you just can't help but feel for Tommen a bit. Yeah. It's a close call for me between King's Landing and the Wall. I think I'm going to give it to the Wall because I really liked Hardhome. It was exciting, but I also I thought the acting was a notch higher. Aemon's death scene was just really, really solid, amazing, and Aemon in general was really good. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Wall, but it looks like King's Landing was the winner. Looks like we had, I think it was 3 or 4 people picked King's Landing. So the winner is King's Landing. Well played, King's Landing. Good job, Cersei. Good job, Robert Strong and Qyburn and Littlefinger and Lancel and all you folks. Okay, so let's move on to the best action moment. The brief moment of action that you thought was the most fun, most exciting, or perhaps most satisfying.
That's easy.
We'll start this time with Stefan, and the nominees are Theon shoving Miranda, Jon killing the samurai White Walker, Jaime catching the sword in his hand, Jorah making the incredible spear throw from the pit to the box, Tyrion beating up the slave auctioneer guy, or the murder of Meryn Trant.
This is actually a pretty complicated one for me because one of the things I have consistently criticized about the show is the fighting choreography, and so taking one favorite action moment and not a favorite action scene really is difficult. So I am going with Jaime catching the sword, not because of Jaime catching the sword being so cool, but because it was the only realistic fight, quote unquote, that we saw the whole season. So this Dorne fighting scene, which is I think the only salvageable Dorne scene in the whole season, that's my favorite action moment.
All right, right on. Okay, Steve, what about you?
I'm gonna have to go with Jorah.
Okay, cool.
I thought that was just absolutely amazing.
Didn't really know it was happening either at first. You're like, what is he doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, 'cause that didn't happen in the books.
Yeah. Cool. All right, right on. Tony, what about you? What's your favorite pick there?
It's very hard to pick. Best action moment, I would have to say, I'll go with Jon Snow. He's the only one on set that actually looks like he cares about fighting scene and actually practices fighting out of everybody. So I'll just for his dedication, I'll give him.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I hadn't considered that one. Ashaya, what about you?
Definitely 100% Jaime catching the sword. I thought that was like one of my favorite moments of the whole season. Throughout all the books, I've like, since Jaime lost his hand, I've wanted him to just like attach something to his hand to do something. And so I was like, yes.
Right on. Yeah, I'm gonna say that was my favorite moment too because.
Hey, you forgot me.
Well, we're coming with you. You'll get in there.
Okay.
I thought that I was just so surprised because actually during the scene I was yelling at the TV going, hit him with your hand, use your hand, and then he did use it and it was completely unexpected. So the surprise value along with the comedic value along with the action, just everything merged really well together for me. So I thought that was great. Okay, so we didn't get Lady Gwyn either, did we?
No.
Okay, so Lady Gwyn, favorite action moment.
That's tough. I think really probably the Jaime, but I really want to say Miranda just for sheer emotional satisfaction.
Well, you'll have most satisfying death.
Yeah, most satisfying death is coming
No,
up
I
later.
can hold on for that one. Okay, well then I'll have to give it to Jaime for action.
Okay, yolkboy, what about you?
I think I'm going to go with Theon shoving Miranda because of the thud that her head made.
The sound design of it.
Yeah, she's not that big of a girl either.
That's true.
Yeah.
She's a stick. It's like a stick figure falling.
She must have had a really bad headache after that one.
I bet.
So it looks like Jaime catches sword is the winner, and Theon shoving Miranda snuck in there for second place.
Well, along with Samurai White Walker.
Samurai White Walker got in there as well. That's true. Okay, so worst.
So next one, yes.
The worst action scene. We get to circle around and do the. Now I think it's Steve's turn to start.
It's my turn to introduce it, though. This is my category.
Right on.
Now, in my opinion, all of these scenes are the worst action scenes because I hate all action. But
I hate all
given the choice, here are the choices: the Sand Snake versus Bronn and Jaime in the Water Gardens, Sam versus the Rapists at Castle Black, the never-ending story scene at Daznak's pit. The whole pit scene.
Yeah, which is Dany riding the dragon.
Yeah, her riding the dragon away, and the dragon just burning everyone. Barristan's last stand against the Sons of the Harpy, and then the Stone Men attacking Jorah and Tyrion.
Now, real quick, I want to point out that some of these are also nominated for best action scenes.
Yeah.
We're allowing for a very wide version of opinions here.
There's a fine line.
You'll see that same theme later in the episode with when best death and worst deaths are also some of the same characters.
Yes. So now, first off, Aziz.
Okay.
What's your worst?
I will have to go with the Sand Snakes versus Bronn and Jaime. I thought it was pretty silly, and not only was it kind of silly, but social media made it even sillier by bringing out the worst moments and really highlighting them and showing Tyene just like shimmying up to Bronn, like holding knives all awkwardly, and just I almost want to give them a little bit of leeway because we heard after the fact that they were really rushed. They only had 10 days to film that, and
they had to prepare. They had to train separately.
Yeah, but that means that they shouldn't have. Maybe they should have done another plan altogether. Yeah. So I'll still go with that.
Yeah, it just means I'm not going to blame the actors.
Yeah.
But okay, Tony. What was your least favorite?
This is not even close. The Sand Snakes and Bronn was just the worst I have ever seen in my life. I looked like my children in the backyard with fake swords could have did a better job than they did. If you had to rush it and be that bad, then don't put it out. You know, have a quality standard. You know, and that's it. Just use that. It was terrible. Xena was better than that. I've seen Lucy Lawless do better moves than that.
I've heard that comparison made, the Xena comparison.
Okay, Steve, what do you think?
Me? Oh, well, I'm going to go with Barristan.
Barristan, okay.
Yeah, that one it ticked me off because Barristan was supposed to be this. He was the Lord Commander at one time, and then all of a sudden he's just killed off, with a quick dagger. Boom.
All right. Stefan, what do you think?
It's not even close. The Sand Snakes, Bronn, Jamie. It is so bad, so ridiculously bad. If you can't if you can't do a fight scene properly, don't give anyone a whip, which is one of the most complicated weapons to use. And I really don't.
Yeah.
And right, and if their plan is to kill Marcello, why didn't they do it right then?
Yeah.
Right, like that makes it yet another thing that ruins that scene.
Is the first victim in Dorne. It has been poisoned and stabbed and whipped and spear thrown through head. Logic. There you go.
All right. Yolkboy, what do you think?
I think that it's the Sand Snakes versus Bronn. I don't think I can say anything. Tony kind of nailed it when he said it was like children playing in the backyard with fake swords and stuff. That's all that needs to be said.
All right,
Bronn running away with another one.
Are you agreeing with everyone else? It's the Sand Snakes for you? Yeah.
Yeah, the cartoon scene, yes. Definitely.
Yeah, in my case, I guess Sand Snakes, where it's like I said, they're all equally bad. I'm not going to choose any one in particular. Irrelevant. I except for the Stone Man. I like the Stone Man scene because it actually scared me.
Cool.
But Sand Snakes wins.
Sand Snake wins in a landslide. At least it wasn't. At least not everyone picked it. So at least we had a little bit of different voice there.
Little different.
Okay, so Yolkboy, time to, or is Lady Gwyn introducing this one?
No, it's me.
All right.
It's me. I'm gonna. I'll be a host for this next one. So action scenes are very important in Game of Thrones to bring it to the visual medium, and they've had an increased budget since season 1. It's just grown and grown, and sometimes it kind of resembles like a Hollywood film, I think. So this season had rich pickings for action scenes. The nominees are Hardhome, Daznak's Pit, Jorah's Minor League Pit, Barristan's Last Stand with Grey Worm, The Stone Men, or Sweet Robin's Training. That one in, that's a cheeky one. And last but not least, Brienne and Pod versus the Valemen.
Okay.
I'm gonna start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna go with my personal choice is Hardhome. I think this was, top-rate TV, brilliant action. I don't think you can really say much against it. Also, there was the element of the surprise, even for book readers, that it was going to take up half an episode. I would really love to know how much that costs, and congrats to HBO for investing in that and it actually paying off. It was almost perfect in my opinion. Okay, so next, Lady Gwyn, what do you think?
Hardhome, definitely, by far.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Enough said. It speaks for
Enough
itself.
said.
Yes. Stefan, what was your favorite?
Hardhome, there can be no question about it. Hardhome was pretty perfect. What I don't understand is what Jorah's Minor League Pit is doing in this category and why it's missing in the other one, because I think it's right up there with the Sand Snakes. But okay.
Steve, what was your favorite action scene?
I'm gonna have to go with the Hardhome as well with everybody else. I thought it was the best. I don't even know how to word it. The choreography behind it was just the best of the season. Not the best of the show per se, but it was the best of the season.
Okay. Tony, what's your favorite action scene?
I think that's no question Hardhome. I think that's what's better. It could be the best action scene I ever seen on TV from top to bottom. It was phenomenal. I like that the best without a doubt. It's not even close.
Okay, great. Ashaya, what was your favorite?
Well, I'll say that I'm the one that said that we should include Sweet Robin's Training because I love that scene. Best action.
We rewatched it recently. It is so funny. Bronn John Royce is just so disgusted. He's just like, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah. Then he falls down. He just trips over his own feet. It's really quite that actor. Get him credit for.
So now I gotta rewatch it.
I almost want to pick that one too, but I'll go with Hardhome. I had so much fun with Hardhome, and it was just so much fun with. I also just enjoyed how much everyone else enjoyed it. The fandom blowing up over it, I actually just made the whole thing better. And I almost feel like this, just like some of the other categories, the way some of these questions are sweeping, we should have had second best action scene because that would have been a challenge.
Categories.
Yeah, that would have been more of a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Let's go with most epic moment. So this is as far as a short 30-second or less scene where it was just really epic, something that was really cool and on a grand scale. So the nominees are Down Comes the Harpy, the big bronze harpy, whatever metal it was, coming down with White Rat, yeah, right, at season 1 or episode 1 rather. Then Night King with his "Come at me, Crow," "Come at me, Snow," "Come at me, Bro" moment, raising the dead. Then in the same scene, the Whites plummeting off the cliff like lemmings, which was just chilling and awesome. And then Drogon in the pit, all manner of flames and burning and spear throwing and everything like that flying off. So we'll start with, let's see, who's up first this time? Oh, we'll start with Tony this time.
I'd like to nominate the boob shot in the jailhouse scene. That's the most.
Write-in vote for Tiny's boobs.
Yeah, that's the only thing that worked into it for me. But I would have to go with the Whites coming off like lemmings. I thought that was just magnificent. That shot right there, which I don't understand. You know, I see a car accident or a little fight, and I gotta go tell everyone I see. How do these guys see that in the Night's Watch and not tell nobody about it? I would have told everybody I seen that. You should have seen these things coming off the wall like this going whole thing. I'd have been going crazy. These guys come back all stoic like it was nothing.
We had a long conversation about how does Jon tell the rest of the realm, like how does he get this? Yeah, so I saw the Night's King, and he rose all the dead.
I saw this weird dude.
Yeah, like, he wrote. Like, I gotta put that in writing and send it out to everybody. They'll believe me. Yeah. Okay. So Lady Gwyn, your pick.
Yeah, that one. The Zombie Avalanche.
Okay.
Zombie Avalanche. It's got great. Okay, yolkboy.
I'm going to go with the Night's King raises the dead. I'll go with this one because I really like the kind of zombie lemming thing too. But this came at the end of the sequence, and it was a great kind of tail end, just to kind of come on then, Jon Snow. You know, the look of the Night's King, just without any kind of fear or emotion, just, you know, I haven't had any damage, you know, these dead are mine. I thought it was great.
Yeah, right on. Okay, Stefan?
I think the Night's King raises the dead scene is the best epic moment, but it is really close. And I want to use this opportunity because the interesting thing about all these choices, minus Tywin's boob shot, is that if you read them on paper, every one of these moments should work perfectly, you know. All of those are epic moments in their own right, but some of them come off much more epic than others. And I think this shows us how difficult it is to really pull off television on a quality level like that. All of those scenes should work, but some don't for some reason, and I can't even tell you why. The harpy coming down was shot perfectly, but it didn't touch me in a way the Zombie Avalanche or the Night's King did. But I can't point my finger to why.
That's a good point. Yeah, I would also have difficulty describing why, but I kind of see what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Steve, what do you think?
I really, really want to go with the Night's King, but I am actually going to go with Drogon entered in pit.
Okay.
I thought that was just magnificently played out, and it was exactly how I pictured it in the books.
Cool. All right, Ashaya?
You know, I actually did like the harpy shot a lot, but I kind of have some resentment because, like, it's a weird thing for them to spend CGI on, I felt. Like, it was a really cool shot. It was, like, first episode, we're seeing it on the big screen. It was, like, especially epic to me, but I have that kind of ruins it for me because I'm like, why did they spend money on that and time on that? But, so yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Night's King Raise the Dead. Just because all the reaction gifs. So.
Yeah. I'm kind of torn on the two Hardhome scenes as well, personally. I think that I'm going to go with him raising the dead. I think one was more awesome and the other was more chilling, and I think the chilling one was a little bit more epic, and the fact that it was the final scene, I think, is a slight nod there. So I think I believe that one was the winner. It was close. Looks like it may have been a tie. But I think we had looks like I think we had 3.
Night's King.
Yeah, I think it was either 4 or 3 for them. So yeah, so the winner is Night's King Raises the Dead by a narrow margin.
Yeah.
Well done, Night's King. Okay, quick shout out here before the next set of questions. Shout out to Don the Kraken Wit and company. I know some of you guys are watching live. They did the longest ever YouTube Game of Thrones analysis question and answer video. I don't know if actually what was it Q&A? It was just a long discussion video, 5.5 hours.
Woo! Good Lord.
Featuring a lot of other good YouTubers and fun people, and good job, guys, on your epic recording there. I don't know how I can talk about Game of Thrones for that long. All of us can. It's just it's so involving. It's an involving topic, but still, 5.5 hour recording. That is
for me. It's the sitting right here.
Yeah.
If I'm laying down in bed or standing around, sure, no problem. But I guess we should move on to the character awards.
Right on, the character awards. Okay, so now we have a bunch of character-centric topics. First of all, we'll start with the favorite show version this season only, which is kind of hard to separate in your mind sometimes, but it's at least the freshest thing in our brains. Favorite show version of point of view character. So the nominees are Jon Snow, Tyrion, Davos, Sam, Dany, and Arya. You'll notice a few POVs were not in there.
No Cersei.
There's no Cersei, there's no Sansa, there's no Jaime, and there's no Brienne.
Yeah.
But mostly because those characters either we just know no one's going to vote for them or because they weren't present enough. Cersei might have actually Cersei should be on this list.
All right.
Let's add Cersei. Start this time with Ashaya. We'll start with you this time.
Sam.
Sam?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love Sam. We've had some good talk of him, talking about history stuff, his stuff. He's clearly going to Old Town, which I can't separate in my mind. He's going to Old Town. I was right. It is happening. Even though he didn't do a whole lot. But, yeah, him.
All right. Lady Gwyn, your pick.
It's tough, but I think I rule out a couple right off the bat, but I think I'm going to go with Arya.
Okay.
Just because Bravos, as a whole, didn't disappoint me.
Right on. So. Okay, yolkboy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arya too. I think that she, they've picked a fantastic actress. That she's been great all the way since season 1 and grown into the role. It's a really good characterization of one of my favorite book characters, and I think she pulled it off well. This season was great for Arya, as Lady Gwyn says in Bravos.
Right on. Okay, Stefan, your pick.
Well, this is really a hard question, but I'm going to go with Sam too.
Okay.
I like the emotional moments that he...
Cool. All right. Steve, your pick.
I'm actually kind of disappointed that you didn't include Sansa, but
you can write her in. You can vote for her if you want.
Well, I'm going to stick with the list, and I'm going to go with Sam.
Okay.
And Sam was definitely my pick to follow up.
Cool. All right, Tony, your pick.
I gotta go with Tyrion. I like Tyrion. I thought it was most faithful to the books. I mean, you got a guy here who's went from handing shit out of a box to ruling Marine by the last episode. So when you look at it like that,
that is quite a rise.
I gotta go with that guy right there.
Okay, my pick. I'm going to go. That's a tough choice. I think I'm going to have to go with. I think I'm going to have to go with Tyrion also. I'm always a big fan of Tyrion, and he always
gives Sam the win.
It does give Sam the win. It goes Sam 3, Arya 2, and Tyrion 2. So good job there for Sam. Arya and Tyrion get the honorable mentions. Okay, Shea, why don't you introduce the next guy?
Yeah, now we have our favorite minor characters. If we didn't include your minor character, please do speak up and mention. We have Shireen, of course, little historian Shireen.
Mm-hmm.
We have Septa Supreme, as we call her, Septa Scalera, the shame.
It wasn't Unella, it was Scalera?
I thought it was Unella. You told me it was Scalera, so it's whatever. It's both of them.
Okay, Unella.
Yes, Septa Supreme.
Septa.
All septas into one. Then we have Night's King, Olenna, and 1-1.
Right on.
Okay, so Let's ask you first, Aziz.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Night King, and I think that he's not a book character. I'm guessing he's not going to be an actual book character. I'm guessing there is no boss other in the books. So, but I think it was a really good, compelling villain, and I think that it's bonus points in my mind that they kind of created a character, sort of, that they did a good job with. All these other characters are basically pretty good versions of their book version. Yeah, pretty good versions of their book version, but Night King being such a new and kind of unique thing, I'm going to go ahead and give him the nod.
Okay. I'm going to go with you now, Tony.
I'm going to take the Night King, too. I like the Night King. I don't know if they made him up or not, or if he is in the books. I mean, whatever, but I like the Night King character. I think that, like that, close with Shireen, but Night King all day.
Okay. Steve.
I really, really wanted to go with 1-1, but he just wasn't featured enough.
He ain't drinking him.
Barely in there. So I'm going to have to go with Night King on this one.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he's running away with it.
Can't believe it. Okay, Stefan, who are you going to choose?
I have to give it to Shireen.
Cool.
Because not only was she incredible in the performance, which is always a problem with child actors, but she also nails all the emotional impact, and this could have gone wrong on so many levels, and it didn't, and I think much of it is owed to the actress here, so Shireen.
Good answer, yeah.
Yolkboy.
Yeah, I'm with Stefan. I was going to really point out how well she acted, and she was very, very sweet, and that really made what happened even worse for the viewer because of the performance of Shireen. It was incredible.
Okay, Lady Gwyn.
Also Shireen.
Oh.
They developed her story well, and echoing the sentiments about the actress, she was just phenomenal.
I'm also going to go to Shireen. My second choice would have been Olenna, who I love Olenna, but Shireen's all her talking about history and all that, and her acting was really good, and I've liked her in general, so her, 100%.
How about that? The first 3 votes for Night King, and it looked like he was running away with it, and then 4 in a row for Shireen.
Yep.
Shireen takes it down.
Shireen squad.
Wow, Shireen squad.
Oh, Shireen.
Shireen burns the Night King.
Real fire and ice question there. Okay, so here's a slightly unusual question. It's another character question, but we're going to try to get to our feelings and try not to be overly analytical about this one. So this is least favorite character in terms of emotional reaction. Doesn't have to be any logic to it. You just don't like this character. For whatever reason, you see them on screen. It could be the acting. It could be the character. It could be even how it's written in the book. You might hate this character in the books as well. There's a lot of nominees for this one, more than normal, and some of these are almost funny. All right, so Tyene, Obara, Ilaria, Ollie, Ramsay, Meryn Trant, Littlefinger, Stannis, Cersei, Melisandre, and Brienne. Now, I know some of these characters are actually people's favorites, so it's kind of funny to see this again, but we're all different here. We have different opinions, so let's see. We'll start with Steve this time. Steve, who is you just can't stand him or her?
Obara.
Obara?
She drives me absolutely crazy. I think she was so arrogant.
That frowny face of hers.
Yeah.
Oh,
like a fish.
Did she even have more than one line?
Yeah, I'm sexy.
Obara Sand.
I'm sexy.
Tyene is the sexy one.
And yeah, she drove me crazy. I was like, will you shut up? Just shut up. Please.
Okay, so Tony, what about your pick?
My since it's an emotional reaction, my least favorite character is my favorite character, and that's Stannis Baratheon. Really let me down. If this is the way that it goes down in the books, I don't think it will be the same way. But if he does burn his daughter and he has something to do with it or anything like that, I would have never thought that the character would do. So without a doubt, Stannis Baratheon.
Okay, interesting. Right on. That's why I included him, because it can be the portrayal of the character that can be so disappointing. All right, Stefan, what about you?
I'm really torn between Ilaria and Meryn. both because they are so vilified, but I guess I'm going with Meryn because making him pedophile was just so too much and so unnecessary in my opinion. So he gains my least favorable emotional reaction of the season.
Okay, yolkboy.
Obara, because there just wasn't any reaction, so she's my least favorite. It was just a kind of cartoon. You know, at least Tyen got some development, but you know, Obara just had not only one line but one face in the whole thing.
Yeah, there was a big difference.
Don't forget the spear.
Okay, Lady Gwyn, what about you?
Well, yeah, this is an interesting question because emotional reaction. I'm going to go with Obara for the lack of emotional reaction. If you wanted to know, like, who did I really hate vehemently, it would be Ramsay. But I think I'll give it to Obara just because.
Dorn is just really racking up your words today.
Yeah.
On the good, the bad kinds. Okay, Ashaya, and you?
Ilaria, 100%. I just, in terms of just spitting in the face of her book character, of everything she stands for, everything I loved about that character, and just like in the guise of like combining, like taking the position of Arianne when she's not, and so I have to constantly like say, no, she's not taking her place. This is not what Arianne wanted at all. And the fact that they could have just killed her there, I blame it all on Ilaria. It's
possible she's the most like attitudinally changed character in the entire adaptation.
Yeah. Catelyn Stark had some big changes too, and that was part of what I really hated about her changes, in terms of wanting revenge and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, myself, I'm glad none of us said Ollie. The fandom just hated Ollie so much, and of course I think and that's why I said emotional reaction, because a lot of us. Some people hate Ollie and realize that they shouldn't hate Ollie, but they just couldn't help themselves. So I'm kind of glad that none of us picked him, and I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to pick him either. I'm gonna definitely say Obara as well. So she's going to win, and it's the same thing. She kind of personifies the weakness of the Dorne plot. It's just overly simplified, and I didn't think her acting was very good, so she kind of encapsulates all the things that were wrong with Dorne all at once, all the way down to the nipple breastplate.
Her bad acting was even more shitty, basically, because she's an award. She's been like nominated for awards. She's been in all sorts of great movies.
Wow.
Like out of all the actresses being added to Sansa's name, she was the most well-known, renowned.
That makes it more disappointing, even on top of that. Yeah. All right, Obara takes it down with 4 votes there out of 7.
Yeah.
Okay, Shea, take us away.
All right, so now the next category is creepy as a character, about whatever creepy means to you personally. We have Meryn and his pedophilia, pretty creepy. We have Melisandre, who wanted to burn Shireen and try to hook up with Jon Snow, pretty creepy. Night's King, also
traditional creepiness.
Yes,
there.
Traditional. Miranda, pretty creepy. Ramsay. Yeah. Qyburn, who isn't that creepy in the show to me, so
he's more creepy in the books, he doesn't do his torturing in
Robert Strong, woo. The High Sparrow, which I guess I see it, and of course Trystane Martell, so creepy. All right.
Stefan is shaking his head like, what?
Is this an inside joke on
with his V-neck?
Okay.
Light hair. No. It is.
That was sort of a humorous inclusion.
Yeah.
Not entirely.
You never know. Maybe someone's really creeped out by him. You don't know. Maybe I'll choose him.
You might.
All right, we're going to start this time with Yolkboy. I'm going to throw you there.
Okay, I'm going to say Qyburn. I was rather surprised to see you say that he didn't seem creepy in the show. I know he's a lot creepier in the books.
Yeah.
He talks Blue Bard, takes nipples off. But remember, someone came down to his basement and he was kind of cutting up a rat. This is what he does in his free time, This is his leisure activity. And also he has this kind of dead body that sits up and he talks to it like it's his little pet. I'm going to go with Qyburn.
Right on.
All right, I think that's pretty valid. I still think he looks like a sweet old man in the show. He got me. He's got me there. All right, let's go with Lady Gwyn. What do you think?
I'm going to have to go with Meryn Trant, pedophile.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's see. Tony.
I think Ollie. I hate Ollie.
He's pretty creepy. We didn't include him.
He was just popping up like Chucky. Every time John would just come around, you see Ollie just pop up behind John with a it was just terrible. He was just there all the time. Every time John's name was mentioned, Ollie's head right after you see him.
He's got a bit of an Obara frown going too.
Right.
Every time they mention John's name, Ollie's head popped up every time.
All right, Stefan, who do you think is creepiest?
I'm going with Miranda because, on the one hand, she is in the storyline that gave us the most surprises because we simply didn't know how it would pan out, and you never knew what she was going to do because you had no reference to hang on, and she had the opportunity to do a lot of stuff. Actually, she didn't do that much, but I, as a viewer who read the books, was always creeped out the most by Miranda simply because I couldn't place her anywhere.
That's a really great point in terms of her unpredictability. I'm almost convinced me. I still have my answer ready. But Steve, who do you think is creepiest?
I'm gonna go with Marin Trant.
Okay.
He was just a dirty old man. I'm sorry. I was, but Melisandre is a close second.
Oh, right on.
All right, Aziz.
Okay, that's a tough one. I confused myself by the different types of creepiness here. We have traditional creepiness, we have pedophilia creepiness, we have cutting on creepiness, and so I think I'm gonna go with Robert Strong actually. Just the way that his eyes looked behind the mask. I was really looking forward to seeing the character on screen. Wasn't sure we'd actually get to see him this season. I thought he'd probably be there at the end of the walk, but I thought maybe they would not do that because you never know with the show.
Yeah.
And just seeing him on screen was just really surprising, and I did feel a little bit creeped out. Just the way the blue face and the eyes and how big he is. It pulled it off. I was really pleased by that. So I'm gonna go with Robert Strong.
That was my answer as well. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Almost convinced me, but Robert Strong was just so deeply creepy to me. Yeah. She was letting him touch her, I was like, he could just crush her.
So that was a two-way tie. It looks like we were all well divided on that. So there are 2 votes for Robert Strong and 2 for Marin Trant. So it looks like the Kingsguard takes it down.
Yeah.
What? Just real quick, have they given him a name on the show? I mean, we call him Sir Robert Strong because we know that's what he is, but he doesn't even have a name on the show yet, does he?
Not yet.
Okay.
He's not a new Kingsguard. He's taking a vow of silence.
Yeah, the vow of silence.
Yeah.
And the Kingsguard, the council took a vow of not knowing how to count to 7. I think.
Right. I guess we're just going to assume that Aris died in Dorne.
I guess.
But
there were 5 Kingsguard walking around with Tommen earlier in the season, and we know there was Jaime and Marin.
Yeah.
So all right, well, one of them died off screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Westeros, those things happen. Okay, so next category is our favorite conversational pairing. It's something that Game of Thrones has done a lot of as a device. They've had 2 characters traveling together. There's a lot of great moments of that in past seasons. Arya and Sandor is perhaps the greatest pairing, but also Arya and Tywin. They weren't traveling around, but still that was a good pairing. Olenna paired with a lot of different people was great, but Tywin in particular was a good one. So thinking back on some of those pairings from past seasons, let's go with some of the ones of this season. We have Tyrion and Jorah on the way to Meereen. That was really good. And Tyrion and Varys also on the way to Meereen, and then finally in episode 10, Tyrion and Dany, which we didn't get as much of, but we got some heavy-hitting scenes there. Arya and Jaqen, of course we're just calling Jaqen, for lack of a better name, the kindly man, whatever you want to call him. I think we know who we're talking about. That actor. Arya and that actor.
Jaqen the cat.
Yeah, Jaqen the cat, yes. And then Sansa and Littlefinger, Olenna and the High Sparrow, and Cooper and Darnell, a.k.a. Bronn and Jaime, which was one of the things about Dorne that didn't stink so much with their conversations. That wasn't so bad, even though it was surrounded by such terrible things. Okay, so this time let's start with Lady Gwyn. What is your pick for favorite conversational pairing?
Ooh, it's Tyrion and anyone really, but give it to Varys by a narrow margin because I really like
Tyrion and
those
Varys.
scenes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Yolkboy, your pick.
I think Olenna and High Septon, because I think they just had one scene, but it was good to see someone who was a major player getting outplayed, and you realize they were powerless. Someone who you previously thought was so smart and so powerful, and I thought that the guy played it really well. So yeah,
that's a good reasoning there. I like that.
Yeah.
Stefan, your pick.
Tyrion and Dany, I think their conversations had the most substance. Nearly every conversation of pairing in Game of Thrones is always highly enjoyable, but Dany and Tyrion and what they talked about said so much about the whole story, about the whole themes, about what it is really about. So this really gripped me in both episodes where they actually talked. That was so deep, really, that I have to give it to them.
All right, well said. Steve, what about you? What's your pick?
I'm going to go with a Tyrion one as well. I'm going to do with Tyrion and Jorah.
All right, all three have gotten in there.
Tyrion is just a great conversationalist.
He really is, and Jorah did quite a bit with just facial acting. He said some things too, but yeah, his facial acting was. If we had a facial acting category for the season, I would go with Jorah. And I wasn't a big fan of Jorah in earlier seasons, but I really liked him.
Me either, but he's growing on me.
Yeah. Okay, Tony, what about you? What's your pick?
I love Tyrion and Varys. I like them together. I think every time they get together, it's always great hearing those two talk together. So I would say Tyrion and Varys.
Okay, cool. Ashaya?
I did really like Tyrion and Daenerys. It gave me the most kind of just yes reaction to see them finally talking, even though who knows what it'll really be like. But I'm going to go with Olenna and the High Sparrow.
Okay.
Basically for the reasons that Yolkboy said, he put it to words very well.
Okay, for myself, I am going to go with Tyrion and Jorah as well. So that's a three-way tie. I kind of explained my reasons already. Steve did a pretty good job encapsulating it, but also the thing I said about the facial acting really sold it for me. Jorah, also Jorah just rising in my esteem was a big thing for me as well. I think he might be the actor that I liked most this season as compared to previous seasons. So that's a big thing. So three-way tie: Tyrion and Varys, Olenna and High Sparrow, and Tyrion and Jorah.
Cool.
All taking it down. We were nicely divided on that one.
All right. Next category, we combined favorite and least favorite. So you can just go ahead and say which was your favorite and least favorite of these. Favorite and least favorite show only character new this season. So like Night's King is not relevant for this category. We saw him last season, for instance.
Briefly.
So here are the ones we have. If we forgot anyone, you can mention them. Maybe we did. We tried to think pretty hard. Carsey from the Hard Home episode. The House of Black and White Gatekeeper, in Bravos. The Volantine prostitute Clea, who spoke with Tyrion in Volantis. She's a pretty funny actress from the show Misfits, actually. And the Red Priestess, played by Rila Fukushima. So let's start with you, Stefan.
Who is missing?
Who is missing?
The slave trader, Mr. Echo. I don't know what his
the
Yes,
slave trader guy.
Oh, Malco.
Malco, that was his name.
That was
Good
his name.
call,
Malco.
Malco.
Good,
Yes,
great
you're right.
Suggestion. Okay, so
I knew we were
Stefan,
missing one, at least one in this category.
Favorite, least favorite. You don't have to give one for both categories.
I
Stefan.
don't think he had Stefan.
Yes.
Sorry. I'm going with Carsey because she was only in one episode and only in a third of an episode before she died. And she was introduced. She had a full character arc, and I cared about her. And that is a feat that I have to applaud. That is great TV storytelling. So Carsey for me. Go Carsey.
All right. Let's go with Yolkboy now.
Okay, my favorite again was Carsey. I thought they set up this, spent all this money on a huge action scene, but you really needed to have some emotion in there, and she provided that. We didn't really know these people, so she really, one person bringing this emotion into it, and it made the whole sequence tick. So that's why Carsey. My least favorite. Well, okay, I'm going to go with the Volantine whore.
Okay.
Is it Clea?
Clea, yeah.
I just didn't feel like she looked out of place. I seem to remember thinking she didn't really look like she was in the scene. Maybe it was something like a haircut or something. She was poorly designed character, minor character, in my opinion.
I agree with that. Lady Gwyn.
Carsey, for certain, favorite.
Right.
Carsey's kicking
Yeah.
ass.
Stefan mentioned she just really made that whole scene. I don't really have a least favorite.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing.
Yeah, these are also just minor characters.
Yeah, we
if you
figured
don't-
maybe someone
Right.
really disliked one of them.
Yeah.
Someone hates Carsey. That's impossible.
Not possible.
It's pretty impossible.
All right, let's go with Steve now. What do you think?
I'm gonna go with everybody else and say Carsey.
Yeah.
Cool.
Carsey's definitely my favorite.
Taking it away.
Yeah.
Tony.
As far
Yeah.
as least favorite,
Oh.
nah, I don't have one.
There's no doubt that it's Carsey. I gotta go. I gotta just let it sweep the category. It deserves it, without a doubt.
Yeah. Aziz?
Yep. Definitely got to go Carsey. She
Take
had
it
a
away.
complete story in a short time. That's a really good way of putting it by Stefan there. And also, just in general, I liked how well people reacted to her.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
that matters to me as a podcaster. When the show makes other people happy and viewers are happy about stuff, that that makes me happy too. And because that makes it all easier for us to talk about things. Yeah, it was really good.
For my answer, I gotta say, Carsey is my favorite, but there were some things that particularly bothered me about it. Specifically, how her mother quality was such a huge thing. How she let herself be killed because she cared about kids. It was just so cliche to me, and it kind of disappointed me. I have to say, despite all that.
Yeah,
That was like her
that
defining
was a little
quality.
awkward,
Like
yeah.
she's such a badass, but as soon as children are around, she's doomed. But it didn't hurt it enough for her not to be my favorite. I almost want to say she's my favorite and least favorite in that aspect. But yeah, I'd say that Clea. I had high hopes when I saw who was cast in the show because she's so funny, and they said she was going to have a great scene, a nice scene talking to Tyrion, and it was not a good scene. It was just like a boring scene. It was one of the worst Tyrion scenes. So I will give a least favorite as well.
So Carsey, that might be
Unanimous, the first one.
Yeah, even some of the Dorne scenes weren't unanimous.
No.
Okay, how about that? Carsey takes it down.
Yeah, and
What
it's
an impact.
unanimous for Clea to be released.
Yeah,
Because there's
that's
only
true.
2 votes for that.
Among voters, yeah, among those with an opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about a different but similar type of question? Favorite/least favorite book to show adaptation new this season. In other words, characters that were adapted from the books but didn't appear in previous seasons.
So like Ilaria couldn't count, even
Right.
though really Ilaria was the same last season.
Yeah, so
But-
that it's on a technicality. Ilaria is not in here, but we dealt with her earlier. So Trystane, the Sand Snakes, we'll just lump them together. No need to separate them. Maggie the Frog, 1-1, Sir Robert Strong, the High Sparrow, Ario Hota, Doran Martell, and the Stone Men. So again, we can do favorite and or least favorite. You don't have to pick a least favorite, but if you have one in mind, go ahead and let us know. So this time, we'll see. Oh, looks like we may have lost Steve temporarily. We'll see if he gets back in here. But for now, we'll start with Tony.
Least favorite is the Sand Snakes, without a doubt. That was my least favorite character. And it's close with them and Hota because he didn't do anything either. I don't even know why they casted him. It seemed like they were pumping him up in the beginning when they casted him, like he was going to do something. And he just broke up a fight in the schoolyard. So,
Hey, he also punched Braun.
Yeah, he gave him an elbow.
Big-
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
That was his
elbow.
big action moment.
I
I agree. I really expected Ario to do something.
thought he was going to kill someone. I thought he'd kill a sand
Maybe kill
snake.
Braun. Yeah.
Braun, yeah.
So okay. Let's move on to Ashaya. Why don't you go ahead?
All right.
Oh wait, who did you say? Tony? Who was your favorite adaptation?
I don't really know.
You're not
if I
sure?
have- Yeah.
I don't have one.
You can pass on that one.
Yeah,
All
pass
right.
on the favorite.
I guess I have to say, oh, that's so hard. That's just really hard. I wish you hadn't gone with me yet so I could have heard what everyone else had to say. I guess the Sand Snakes are my least favorite just because they're just one character. They're not really the Sand Snakes at all. Like Trystane is just a new character to me. He's not interesting in the books at all.
So
he's just a new character, so I can't count him. So I guess Sand Snakes are my least favorite, and my favorite is, I guess, Robert Strong. Okay. Yeah, I guess so. He's just the scariest.
Okay, Lady Gwyn.
Yeah, it's tough to pick between all these Dornish characters for least favorite because they're all such a disappointment. I think Doran Martell was a huge disappointment because they cast this great actor to play him, and then he had so little screen time. I mean, we went episodes and episodes without even seeing him, and he just really fell short of my expectations. I'll go with him for my least favorite.
Okay.
On the other hand, speaking of great actors, the High Sparrow, I think, would be my favorite. From this list.
All right. Yolkboy?
Okay, I'll echo Lady Gwyn, say the High Sparrow was, they got the right actor, had great presence, and they also spent the time, developing him, giving him the kind of personality, and then you saw the change in him. Least favorite, the Sand Snakes, and the fact that we call them that they're one character is exactly why we don't differentiate anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, I'll call on myself now instead of the end. I'll go ahead with least favorite. I guess the argument for Doran is a strong one because it is one that's more disappointing because the expectations were higher for him. I didn't really know what to expect with the Sand Snakes. They were disappointing, but my expectations were more cautious with Doran. That's a tough call. I think I'm still going to go with the Sand Snakes though. For my least favorite, and for most favorite, I've been liking this argument for the High Sparrow. He was really, really good. His presence is so strong that I was super excited. Speaking of actors I was excited for Alexander Siddig playing Doran Martell, but I was also really excited for Jonathan Pryce playing High Sparrow, and in that one I was not disappointed. He probably got only a little bit more screen time than Doran, but it was just so much more potent. His screen time, he used it better. He was so dominating and authoritative and scary. So I'm going to go with the High Sparrow.
All
right, Stefan, your pick.
I have to disagree. I think the High Sparrow got much more screen time than Doran, but that's a technicality. I have to absolutely agree that the High Sparrow and Jonathan Pryce's playing of him knocked it out of the park, really. He starts off as such this nice granduncle guy, and then he becomes more menacing as the season progresses. He really did this very well. And as for the least favorite, I have to take Doran Martell as well. Not only because the expectations were so high, but because his role in the season is so nonsensical. You can cut him out completely and you still get the same Doran story. He doesn't do anything, and this is just so... the height of his ruling is when he allows Trystane to hit Bronn in the face real hard, because that's good ruling now, obviously.
Now we're even...
No, that's not Doran.
Okay, Tony?
Tony.
Yeah.
I did that. Did we do
you did whoops.
Did you write?
That's right, because Steve is gone.
He just didn't
I just only have 6 hats. Okay, so we're short a person now. Okay, so looks like the winner is High Sparrow, and the loser is Sand Snakes, surprisingly.
Hey.
Okay, so now we're going to do, the next one is biggest group of characters that were cut, as in their impact that we maybe expected to have that wasn't there, or you're just disappointed because you wanted to see them on screen and they weren't there. So the nominees are the Myronese Court, Shave Pate, Resnack, Mo Resnack, the Green Grace, the Skin Changers like Varamir and Borak, his boar, and all the different animals Varamir could have. I kind of understand why those weren't in the show, because that's expensive CGI and stuff, but still, kind of hope it's still a worthy nominee. Arianne Martell, Aris Oakhart, Darkstar, all these other, and I suppose the rest of the Sand Snakes, although some of them could still appear. Aegon the 6th / Fegon, whatever you.
I would count all the Sand Snakes in that, just because those weren't the.
They weren't really there, yeah. And of course that includes John Connington, Septa Lemore, what's his face, the Halden Halfmaester, and Duck. Quentin and the gang, so Quentin Martell, as well as
Archibald
Ironwood, and Garrett's Drinkwater. Cersei's Council, which includes Giles Rosby, Oriane Waters, Sir Harry Swift, and last but possibly least, the Summer Islanders and Darien from
Northern Lords,
and that's pretty small.
And stuff.
But
what's that, Stefan?
He said the North
the
was missing?
and the Northern Lords.
And that was because with the casting news, it seems that they are casting some Northern Lords. So we also don't have the Ironborn in there because we're just not sure. We don't want to call it quite yet. And we wouldn't have included the Summer Islanders, but it looks like Sam and Gilly aren't taking a ship.
Yeah.
So that's why. Although I do think Manderley is cut, and the other Northern Lords are there, but we'll see.
Yeah. So we will be discussing that at the end when we discuss the casting stuff. But that is why we didn't include the Manderley stuff because of that. Okay. So with that in mind, why don't we start with you then, Stefan, since we were already chatting. So biggest character group cut.
It's a hard decision, but I think I'm going with Fagin and company because they are the ones that are costing us a complete, really important storyline from the books that I'm pretty sure will have serious ramifications in the books that we can't have in the show now. So they have the most impact by being cut. I think we lose the most by the Myronese court because much of the complexity goes out of the window, but Fagin and company are the most important in sheer mass of plot.
Okay, I like that argument. Tony, how about you?
With Aegon, it affects too much storyline, too much stuff cut from the book. It changes Barry's whole objective and everything he's doing. It just is that's something they should have kept in that they didn't. I wish that was there.
Okay, Lady Gwyn?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, in terms of just this season, losing the Myronese court kind of led to this lack of focus and not really knowing what was going on over there. But overall, in terms of the whole story, missing Aegon VI and that whole storyline is going to have big ramifications down the road, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's looking strong for Mr. Fagin here. Okay, Yolkboy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think maybe if you're just looking at the effect this season, that loss of Arianne, Aerys, and Darkstar really kind of facilitated the butchering of the Dawn plot. But as everyone's pointed out, in the broader scheme, Aegon represents a possible civil war. You know, he's got kind of chaos written all over him for the greater plot, so that's a huge cut. It could even mean that we don't get to see dragons versus dragons.
That's true.
Which might be what he represents in the books.
Dance of the Dragons 2.0 potentially not going to be in the show. Shaya.
I'm going to have to echo everyone else and say Fagin as well, but I say that thinking that if they were to include him, it would make a whole lot of sense for them to have then included Arianne and that whole stuff. I think they would have done the Dorne stuff differently if they'd had him. So I think that they kind of go hand in hand for me, so that's why I say that. I just have to give my shout out to that as well.
I agree. It's kind of a domino effect. It changes other, like everybody has pointed out, it changes other plot lines just removing it. Like Tony said, it changes Varys hugely. But like you said, it does affect the Dornish plotline in such a huge way. And I think we might be headed towards, instead of Quentin and Dany as a thing, well, obviously that didn't work out, especially for Quentin, but they could try some sort of Trystane-Dany thing to connect Dorne to her. And now that Myrcella's dead, that could work. I don't know if that's...
With no other heir for Doran Martell, of course he wants to do this.
And obviously that's not what's going to happen in the books, so it's a huge change, and it's like a domino effect. So I'm not sure, but yeah, I got to agree with Fagin.
Cool.
So
another
clean
unanimous.
sweep there, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Shea is going to take us through a very, very serious question here.
The best singer in Westeros this season. Okay, we have Mace Tyrell, a.k.a. Mace of Bass, as Aziz calls him. I don't call him that. I just call him the best singer in Westeros, because that's the answer. We have Bronn, also known as Cooper, and his song he sang The Dornishman's Wife. We have Tyrion's gag singing, where he's kind of like humming, like that. And then as a little honorable mention, we have Jorah and Tyrion in their poetry reading, which is a kind of a song in its own way.
It has rhythm.
Yeah, it has rhythm.
Absolutely.
So let's go with you, Lady Gwyn. What do you think?
I have to say, without a doubt, it's Bronn. Big fan of Jerome Flynn as a singer, so I was really excited to see him singing. But I do like the spoken word honorable mention.
One vote for Cooper.
Okay, yolkboy.
As an Englishman, I really have to go for Bronn because Jerome and Flynn were a pop sensation here. Unchained Melody went to #1 for many weeks, and just to hear his dulcet tones in Game of Thrones, I have to go with him.
All right, Stefan.
Jorah and Tyrion poetry reading. I thought it was really transporting the mood of Valyria and the long-gone kingdom of the olden times and stuff like that. It was a really moody moment, and I liked it.
Yeah, it's a show-only moment too. That's another thing that's kind of surprising.
It definitely was a great moment. Tony.
I'm going with Bronn. He's definitely held the note better than anybody else this season.
Unbelievers, all of you. I'll write down I chose Mace and his beautiful...
Yes, we know. Shea picks Mace.
What do you choose, Aziz?
I'm going to go with the Doom poem. I just thought that was so awesome, and it was the fact that the show kind of just created that on its own makes it even cooler because I have lower expectations for their homework stuff. And I thought Mace was... I loved Mace's singing. I thought it was hilarious, and he actually does have a pretty good voice, but...
He's very good.
Doom was just too cool.
Yeah. I'm always going to choose humor.
Yeah.
All right, so Bronn takes it.
That's true. Bronn does take it down. 3 votes to 2 to 1.
All right.
Cooper takes it down.
So now we're going to move on to the Morbid Awards. We're going to talk about all these different deaths we had this season.
Yes, lots of death categories here.
Yeah, a lot of different categories. So the first one we have is Saddest Death, which there are a lot of pretty sad deaths. Some of these maybe not so sad to me, but we'll see. Shireen, Maester Aemon, Jon Snow, Barristan, Myrcella, and Stannis. Okay, I'll go ahead and say right now, mine's Maester Aemon.
Okay.
100%. Saddest scene in the whole books to me. Makes me cry. I don't even want to talk about it. So, Tony, what is your answer?
Without a doubt, for me, it's Shireen. It was just terrible. Just terrible hearing that little girl scream. Just terrible. Them picking her off her feet and bringing her up there, and her screaming for her father, and her mother falling on the floor. Just terrible.
All right, let's go with Yolkboy.
I am going to go for Shireen as well. It was sad in a lot of different ways. But I guess most of all, the fact that she's being burnt by her own parents, and she was such a sweetheart. It was terribly sad, as well as, kind of completely unnerving. Shireen.
All right, Stefan.
Shireen, definitely. It was such an emotional and devastating scene. You can't really top that.
All right, Lady Gwyn.
Definitely Shireen. Again,
Taking
for all the
it
reasons
away.
everyone mentioned. Yeah.
I will also go with Shireen.
Not Myrcella?
No, it was not Myrcella. It's close. No, it's actually close between Aemon and Shireen, but Shireen wins because of 2 or 3 reasons. One, the surprise factor, because Aemon I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So I had already experienced the emotions over Aemon's death reading the books back there, so that muted it a little bit. But the other thing is just that Aemon's an old man, and Shireen is a little girl, and that just is more tragic. And just in general, in a nutshell.
I didn't have the surprise factor because I got spoiled. Thank you, everybody. But I guess I was surprised when I saw that at the first time, but I did.
But you didn't feel her performance.
Yeah.
You were, So
I was sad at Shireen. I teared up a little, but like Maester Aemon, I'm just like bawling. I don't know what it is. He is an old man. He died natural causes. It shouldn't be that sad.
Well, it looks like Shireen wins.
Yeah, almost.
Wins.
Almost unanimously, except for me. So.
Okay.
All right.
The next category, which relates sort of to this one, we have Best Last Words. There's only 3 nominees because we only went with people who knew they were dying. Characters like Myrcella didn't actually know she was going out. She had a last words, but they weren't in the face of death. So the actual best last words in the face of death, the 3 nominees are Stannis, go on, do your duty. Aemon, egg, I dreamt I was old. And Mance Rayder, I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And this is said in response to kneel and live. So pretty boss utterance by Mance there. All right, we'll start with Yolkboy.
Okay, I'll go with Stannis and go on do your duty. It was whatever you thought of Stannis at that stage, which was, your opinions were lowered considerably. It was a kind of very apt last line from him in the situation there with Brienne, who's always seems to be obsessed with oaths and upholding vows. So, it was a big payoff for me. I thought it was the right way for him to go out.
Okay. Lady Gwyn?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the man's line was great, and of course the Aemon line from the books was great, but definitely Stannis in terms of fitting in with not only his character, but the character that he was speaking to. Definitely
Cool.
takes
All right, Stefan?
I think I'm an outlier here, but I like Stannis' line, and so go on, do your duty, yes. That is a fitting end for a great character arc, I think, and it works perfectly.
Cool. All right. And Tony?
No doubt, Stannis Baratheon.
I'm going to agree with that one. I'm going to go with Stannis as well. I thought I'm eager to, well, not eager, but I'm curious to learn how, if they have, if he has a last line in the books, whenever that comes, whether it's sometime towards the end of Winds of Winter, which I suspect if he does die in the books, well, I would expect he does die in the books, but if he doesn't, or if he does, doesn't really matter. If it does happen, I would expect it to be near the end of next season. So I have no idea what's coming with that. So that's kind of part of why I like it, is because it's another one. It's the same reason I like the Doom thing. It's something that the show seems to maybe have invented on its own, and that gives it a little extra credit for me. Although they did do a great job with Aemon. Again, I like the newness of the Stannis line and just how perfect it is.
Mm-hmm. Mine will also be going to your duty for those reasons. I loved Egg, I Dreamt I Was Old, but that was the show's creation. That was the book's creation, and I have to. They created that. I'm assuming that he didn't give them specifics in the sense of Stannis' last words.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that. So I'm going to go on the assumption that they created that, and that's just it's just perfect in the sense of that he's saying it to Brienne, that he's saying it, just everything.
A lot of us are probably doubtful that Brienne will be the one to kill Stannis anyway.
Yeah.
So that's almost certainly makes it a show invention. But yeah, so good job there. All right, so clean sweep for Stannis there. Go on, do your duty as the winner.
Yeah.
Okay, Yolkboy, you going to introduce this next one for us?
Yeah, the next category is a good one. Most satisfying death. There's enough deaths in Game of Thrones, and some of them, unlike the Shireen example, are actually quite enjoyable on some level. And the contenders are Meryn Trant, Stannis Baratheon, Selyse, White Walker. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Aziz. You just got White Walker.
The one that John kills.
John kills.
With
the one that. Sorry, it was escaping me. Miranda or Janos Slynt, or if there's any other satisfying deaths that people have, then they can add one. Okay, Lady Gwyn, do you want to start proceedings?
Sure. I'm very torn between Miranda and Janos Slynt, but it's going to go to Janos Slynt.
Okay, General Slynt. I forgot I should get mine out of the way. I'm gonna go with Miranda, the same reason I said before, because of the noise her head makes.
That's why she was very close to being my choice. I'm waiting for
I would say that it really should have been. This really should have been wrapped up with General Slynt, but I don't think that the show didn't quite nail it as it was in the books.
If there had been Ed fetch me a block, that would have pumped it up more.
Well, yeah, that was missing, sadly.
Stefan, what was your most satisfying death?
Stannis, for the same reasons that I chose his last words. It was just a perfect end for his arc.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It seemed like the right time. Tony?
Janos Slynt. I thought the guy who played Janos Slynt did a good job talking shit. And it was good to see him get what he got, you know what I mean? So Janos Slynt, without a doubt.
You were satisfied. Okay, Aziz?
I am going to go with Meryn Trant, actually.
Okay. That's pretty prolonged satisfaction. I mean, long death.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I almost didn't
say.
pick it because it wasn't. Watching it wasn't satisfying because it was maybe the most gruesome thing they've shown in the entire 5 seasons. But that dude really needed to get it. I mean, his beating on girls actually was foreshadowed a bit because he seemed to really take a really was lusty about beating Sansa back in like seasons 1 and 2. And so it was a bit foreshadowed, but I didn't think it was necessary for them to show it all like that. I mean, not just the stabbing in the face, but the beating of the girls. But you know, I have a very simplistic view there. It's just satisfying to see a pedophile get it. You know? So, yeah, I'm pleased that way.
Sorry. Ashaya.
I'm not really particularly satisfied by any of the deaths, I have to say. In particular, I maybe would have been more satisfied by Miranda if it hadn't been so soon, or Sansa had pushed her or something. I was more just like shocked that it happened like that. But I have to go with White Walker because that was a cocky White Walker who should have just killed Jon.
He was tossing him around.
That.
Yeah,
he was just, like,
he was playing with him.
He was playing with him, and he got what was coming to him for being cocky. So him.
Right on, that's a good answer. I didn't think about it from that way. It looks like Jenna Slint is the winner because we spread ourselves out and 2 people voted for Slint and everyone else picked a single. So
Janos.
Slint is the winner despite no Ed fetch me a block.
All right. Now we have our most surprising death. A lot of these are people who are still alive in the book, so that's why it was surprising to us as book readers, of course. We have Shireen, Barristan, Stannis, Hizdar, Myrcella, Miranda, and Mance. I'm going to start with you, Aziz.
Okay. That's a really tough call because I almost want to say Mance, and Mance is like the biggest setup for people who have watched the show first and then go to read the books. They're going to be really, really confused and legitimately thrown for a loop in a way that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I honestly was more surprised by Hizdar. That was just, especially the way they set it up, they gave us where have you been? You know, I wanted to make sure everything was in order. I was sat forward like, oh, there's our nod to book readers that he's the Harpy. And then, like 2 minutes later, he's stabbed to death. So I was like, whoa. So I was legitimately surprised. Some of the other deaths were set up, so the surprise kind of built. With Hizdar, it was just bam, surprise. So that's.
I'll go ahead and give my answer now. It was the same, Hizdar.
Okay.
I agree. Now, Tony, who do you think?
Yeah, I always figured that something was going to happen to Stannis possibly this season if he didn't make a really big play in the books. So I would say Hizdar, I did not see that coming whatsoever, that him dying.
Right on.
Stefan?
Yeah, absolutely. Hizdar, this was one of the biggest surprises ever.
Okay, Yolkboy.
Yeah, I was thinking about Mance because I was still wondering if he was dead after he was dead.
He's not. He's Giant Tormund.
Yes, I'm sure. It couldn't be a reveal. He's going to be another character. But I think Hizdar, because even with Stannis, I'd considered it. You know, I considered, well, is he disposable? Shireen considered, but Hizdar, I don't think I'd heard anyone speculate at all that he was going to be out of the way. I was still waiting for him to get married, poor guy.
Yeah.
All right, Lady Gwyn.
I had Shireen for the same reason she was my saddest death. She was the most surprising. Most of these other ones, I don't expect them to survive, even if they are still alive in the book. So I wouldn't say they were hugely surprising, even though Hizdar was visually surprising the way it happened. I don't expect him to live very long. So Shireen, I just never thought this would happen. So.
You know, it's interesting that nobody picked Barristan. I'm sure if we had done this halfway through the season, he'd almost certainly be there weren't really almost none of these other characters had died except for Mance by then. But still, early in the season, there was so much outcry over Barristan's death and how it was either unrealistic or surprising or what have you. Even the actor was surprised. But it looks like us attentive book readers looks like Hizdar is the winner there. 4 votes for Hizdar. That's interesting. I'm a little surprised that Hizdar carried the category, even though I knew I was going to vote for him.
Yeah, you knew I was going to vote for him.
Yeah, that's true. I guess maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but
we were surprised at everything.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a few left here, a couple more categories, and then we're going to discuss, like I said, the trailers. So the survivors. This is an interesting one. Characters that we were worried about during the season who survived. So you're going to have to think back to who you were kind of worried about during the season. This is a little more memory jogging required. So another name for this category would be most surprising non-death. The nominees are Bronn, Brienne, Jorah, and Varys. some of you guys might be surprised by some of the categories some of these nominees, but during our show, all these characters were discussed at length, so at least we had our reasons for naming them when we did. Some of them seem kind of silly now, like Varys doesn't seem like he was ever in much danger, but at the time we had good reasons for thinking that.
Yes.
So I will start with myself this time, and I will say Bronn. Definitively, Bronn. There was so much foreshadowing for his death, the way they talked about how you want to die, like worst ways to die, him being, foreshadowing him being poisoned with the snake in the sand there and all that. It just was like, I had already said goodbye to Bronn. Maybe I should have known. They telegraphed it so much that was the trick. I'm voting for Bronn, and Stefan, we'll go with you next.
Absolutely, Bronn. I totally expected him to die, but no, he didn't.
Yeah. Even till the last second, like episode 10, I was like, then I thought, like, he could fall at the pier and just drown.
Right.
Okay, Lady Gwyn.
Yeah, definitely Bronn. We spent a lot of time talking about this in our show reviews. We really were certain, one way or another, he was going to die.
It was like a weekly thing every time.
Yeah, Bronn. Well, this is how he's going to die now. But
yeah. Okay,
he's still there.
Yolkboy.
Okay, it was always Bronn is my answer, but a shout to Brienne because at one stage I was a little bit worried with her going in the same region as Ramsay. But
and we didn't know
was a
what to
continued
do
thing.
either, right? Like, what is Brienne doing up there?
Yes.
Oh yes, Dennis. Okay,
No, put me down for a Bronn.
Okay, Bronn it is. Tony, what you got?
Yeah, I'm still shocked that Bronn survived. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it. He should have died, but he didn't. So, yeah, Bronn without a doubt.
Ashaya, your pick as well, or it will be a sweep for Bronn, or no?
I don't think it will be. I think I really thought Varys is just with his plans, his master plans gone with no Aegon. I just was weird. It just made a lot of sense for me to just get rid of him and not have to deal with his motivations at all. And we just didn't see him for a while. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Varys. I was more worried for him. Like, I like Bronn, but I wasn't like concerned. I guess so. Varys, just to keep you guys from sweeping.
Just to keep Bronn from sweeping. Didn't he already win the singing one?
Yeah. He didn't sweep.
Well, they kept him around so he can sing again, maybe.
Dorne is sweeping a lot of things. They're sweeping a lot of worst ofs, and Bronn is getting his own things for extracurricular things. For living and for singing, Bronn has been awarded for not dying. Okay, so here's perhaps the most morbid category of all. Who burned best? Who was set on fire and did it the best? For whatever reason, whether it's acting or just
most people
gesticulating burned. Or most preferred burning, whatever. Okay, so the nominees are Mance Rayder, Shireen Baratheon, Aemon Targaryen, random great master who was set afire and torn so nicely in half by Viserion and Rhaegal, and the Sons of the Harpy as a group who did a lot of burning in Daznak's pit. We'll start with you this time, Ashaya. Who burned best? Shireen burned best.
The acting, her screaming, it was just the best. I considered going with the Sons of the Harpy because it was the best burning, as in most people burn, and Drogon could just blow Melisandre out of the water when it comes to burning, but Shireen, anyways.
Okay. Lady Gwyn, what about you?
Definitely Shireen for the acting, although I have to give a shout-out to that random great master, because that was really well done, in the effects for that. I love the way the dragons shared the corpse.
Yeah, the CGI in that scene was really good, wasn't it?
It was a fun scene. As opposed to all these other burnings. So
gotta have fun with your burnings.
Yeah.
All right, Yolkboy.
Yeah, I'll go with Shireen because it was just the most effective to the watcher, wasn't it? It was just so harrowing, and much more can be said. So yeah.
Yeah, Carrie Ingram taking it down. It looks like. All right, Stefan, what do you think?
I'm also going with the boring option of Shireen because many of the others that are legitimate contenders are falling flat in the course of the season. For example, the random great master could have been a great setup for the Myronese political plot, but actually it didn't amount to much, so I can't really take it.
Good point. Okay, Tony?
Yeah, in the books, I never really cared about anybody being burnt. It's like, someone got burnt, someone got burnt. It was like that. But Shireen, what she did to that was kind of like what Pedro Pascal did for the mountain scene to me. She really brought it alive to me more than the books I could see. So I don't ever want to see anyone get burned again.
That's a great point.
Okay, Shea, you haven't gone yet, all right?
I did.
You
I
did?
said Shireen.
Ooh, did I not go yet?
You didn't
I
go
didn't go
yet.
yet. Yeah, I'm going to go Shireen also. Sweet for Shireen. Good job carrying me. That's a good point, Tony. It kind of affects all burnings from now on.
When
Yeah,
I reading the books, reading burnings, I'm going to think of that scene.
I did. I've already re-listened to the burning scene in Stannis' campaign where they burn the cannibals, and I felt it more. Asha's the one, we see that her point of view for that, and she's just so disgusted by it. And she points out that she's been in battle and seen all sorts of gruesome things, but this is just beyond her even then. And yeah, so all the combination, it's driving home how awful burning is, and I feel like we'll see more burnings in the books rather than it being, because this is like a condensing, so. Especially with Dragonflame, there'll be some burnings, but there'll also be some burnings at the stake, which will be creepy. Will be impacted.
Now we have a long category.
Now we have there's a lot of possible answers for this one, but it's a good segue away from that morbid subject there of burning. Now we get to do our funniest moment of the season. Okay, so the nominees for funniest moment are Stannis correcting the term less with fewer. We have Varys saying to Tyrion about, do you know what it's like to shit in a box? Fit your shit through these holes? He says, no, I only know what it's like to pick up your shit and throw it overboard. Then we have Tyene slapping Nym in the slapping game. Then we have Tyrion saying, guess again, about the size of his cock and the whole cock merchant thing, which is kind of funny. Then we have, was it Dario saying, does he always talk this much? And Jorah's facial reaction was great. Then we have Lyanna Mormont's letter of there is only one king in the north and his name is Stark, and Jon laughing about that. Then we have 1-1 saying, what the fuck you looking at, to Dolorous Ed. Then we have Mace's singing again. Then we have Jilly's great line, I'm sure you and Ostrich Stark have a lot to talk about. And finally Tyrion's long, sullen silences and the occasional punch in the face, the Mormont way. So lots of great choices for funniest moment of the season, and we will start with Lady Gwyn.
Well, it's between the two Tyrion lines, the long, sullen silences, which I think should be the new Mormont house words.
Here we stand is gone. Now it's
long, sullen silence.
There's an occasional punch in the face. But I have to go with guess again, just in terms of silliness, because that just made me laugh out loud, and it stuck with me. It made me giggle for the rest of the day. So.
Okay. Yolkboy, what's your pick?
I'm going to go with Stannis saying fewer. And I think this has got an extra layer because it was said in season 2, was it?
Yeah.
I think Brian Cogman wrote both of those, and I like Brian Cogman for moments like this. It's Stannis' last great moment.
That's true. I guess it kind of is. Certainly his last comedic moment. All right, Stefan, what do you think?
Also, Stannis says fewer. That was just my biggest laugh of the whole season.
It's kind of sudden, wasn't it? It was like you didn't expect a joke there in that room with those people. Too, yeah. Okay, so Tony, comedic.
I'm going to go with the letter to Jon Snow. I thought that was cute to see it there. So I thought for those reasons, I liked that one the best.
I kind of didn't expect that one to even make it into the show too. That was a surprising inclusion.
Yeah.
All right, Ashaya, your pick.
Ostrich Stark. I think her delivery on that "you and Ostrich Stark" is really good, and I love that they were talking about history right there. Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, there's a lot of so many funny moments. It's really hard to choose.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with long, sullen silences and the occasional punch in the face. I was quoting that one for a week straight afterwards.
Yeah.
Trying to use my own version of it, just the blank way, just inserting different names in there. So I'll go with that one. Looks like fewer is the winner, which is a divided category, a lot of choices. There's more answers than there were voters. Might should have narrowed that down a little.
Maybe.
But it's fun to remember all the funny moments of the season, even if they're not legitimate contenders.
So, speaking of history moments, like Ostrich Stark, our next category is History Shout-Out, which we, of course, appreciated, and there were a pretty good amount this season. We had Shireen talking about the Dance of the Dragons with Stannis. We had the Ostrich Stark moment with Sam talking about Osric Stark.
Youngest Lord Commander.
Yes. We had Maester Aemon talking about Egg. Not so much, it's more personal history than a historical event, but still counts. We have Tyrion and Jorah talking about the doom of Valyria. And then we have Cersei talking about the Faith Militant. Let's go with Tony first.
What about, can we put in Littlefinger and Sansa about Rhaegar and Lyanna?
Oh,
Yeah.
We missed that. That's a yes. We must have that in there.
We'll have that in there, yes.
I'm gonna go with that one.
All right.
I thought that was big.
R plus L equals Tony Teflon. All right.
There you go.
I can't believe we missed that one.
Yeah.
Yep. Good call. Good call.
Okay, so that's yours. Stefan, what do you think?
It's a close one for the Doom of Valyria over the Dance of the Dragons.
Okay,
I
Doom.
think it was a little bit more moody and had a little bit more significance, but only really. So.
Okay.
Yolkboy.
I think Tony won me over with this last-ditch omission of the Rhaegar and Lyanna. I thought that it was kind of unexpected, and all right, it's very different from the books, but it was the fact that they nodded and they'd made the effort to kind of connect with book readers. I liked it.
It was the most relevant too, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Lady Gwyn.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with that because it was well done. We talked about it in the review episode that it was, even though it was very different, it was well done. They included everything that they really needed
the Barristan side of it as well in the same episode, I believe.
Yeah, that was Barristan and Dany in the same episode talking about Rhaegar. So
as well, that would count as well. Yeah. Aziz.
I was almost won over by that as well, the right end, but I'm going to go with the Doom as well, just because partly because I loved the poem so much, and because it was history. They were telling the history of the place while they were in the place, which is really neat. Although they were in the crypts for the Rhaegar and Lyanna scene, that added to it as well. But I'm gonna narrow a narrow margin. I'm gonna give it to the Doom.
I'm going to give it to the Dance of the Dragons because Shireen added her own analysis of the events there, and because when watching it, Stannis asking her who she chose, I was expecting her to give an answer, and for maybe that to influence Stannis in some way, and for her to give maybe the wrong answer. I was really on edge for what she was going to say, and then she says they shouldn't have chosen, she wouldn't choose either one. And it was just such a perfect answer, and just such a perfect moment, so that's mine.
That is a really good point. Her wisdom was wisdom beyond her years there. That made it a lot more poignant.
Yeah. So the winner is...
Winner was R plus L, however. Looks for 3 votes there. Yeah. The write-in candidate wins. Right.
Second would have been Doom of Valyria for me.
Right on. Okay. So the Doom was close there, a close second place there. All right, now we have a shout-out for our Patreon Northern Champions, Bloody Blake the Avatar, Sir Benjamin Coldwater, Knight of the Frozen Lake, Sir Alexander Greencloak, Scion of Snow River, Jay Wilson, Winter's King, and Lucifer Means Lightbringer, High Priest of the Church of Starry Wisdom. Thanks a lot, guys.
Point out that it says Alexander Greek Cloak.
I read it correctly, but typed it wrong. That's funny. Greek Cloak.
Yes,
okay. Well, now you have a second nickname.
Yes.
All right, next category.
The next category is maybe my favorite one, Best Scenery. This counts the CGI. There's so many aspects to the scenery, but I'm gonna talk about each one, what's within each one. For instance, we have Bravos, which includes the House of Black and White, and includes some really cool background shots of the Titan, from behind and stuff like that. Valyria, just all of Valyria, but which also counts. Valyria counts those scenery beach shots, those beautiful shots that Tyrion and Jorah were part of. Marine, which has Daznak's Pit and the Harpy, of course.
That's pretty big.
And I guess Daenerys on the Dragon. No, I don't know that that's a point in its favor. But also has the great shots of Marine itself with the pyramids.
Yeah.
We have Dorne, which includes the water gardens and those coastal shots. Dornish coastal shots.
Irish
King's Landing, which is mostly just a whole lot of shots of the Sept of Baelor, which still looks great. The Dothraki Sea in the finale with Daenerys. Hardhome, just all of that stuff. And then we have armies and sigils of Westeros. So you can just say, you most liked all the shots of all the Stannis, all the Bolton men, all the Baratheon men, all the Vale men. We saw a lot of sigils, more than we really have before, I think.
Yeah, we saw the Targ banners. I mean, especially if you count the Army of the Undead.
And the White Army, all of those things. So a lot of really great scenery shots.
This is a tough category.
Yes. Let's start with you, Aziz.
Okay. All right. Good call. I'm going to go with the armies and sigils of Westeros. I really liked seeing. We saw so many different ones. We got to see ones that we didn't see before, and I really like the huge Targaryen banner and the White Army that just kind of throws it over the top there.
All right.
So I'll go with that one.
Cool. Tony, what do you think?
I think that the House of Black and White, the Chamber of Faces, is the single best shot they've ever shown in this show.
Right on.
So I'm going to go with that, without a doubt.
Bravos. Okay. Stefan, what do you think?
I'm going with the armies and sigils of Westeros because I really like how they give all the armies a different style, a different feel. You always know which army it is, the soldier you're looking on, and the whites, of course, knocked it out of the water.
Cool. Yolkboy.
Okay, I'm going to go with Bravos as a whole. It turned out to be very close to my headcanon. The large buildings, as well as the kind of back streets, were really cool. The two large buildings, the Iron Bank and the House of Black and White, was good inside and outside. So, Bravos.
Lady Gwyn.
I'm going to go off the map and say Volantis.
Oh, Volantis! I can't believe
we
didn't
skipped
include
Volantis. We forgot Volantis.
Our bad.
Yeah, there's this great shot as they're approaching the long bridge. That beautiful, beautiful scenery with the long bridge and Volantis coming up in the back.
That's true.
Good point.
That's a great suggestion. I wish we had seen more of that, and I maybe would have chosen it if we had seen more of it, but it wasn't quite enough for me. I was close to going with the armies and sigils of Westeros, just because we see a wide variety of different things. But I think I'd go with Bravos because they really made it immersive in how you see the Bravos, you see the Titan from the back, you see it like all around the city. It just is a feature there.
Yeah, you always knew where you were.
Yeah, and you knew where you were. You have the House of Black and White. You have the inside, which is pretty cool, but the outside was cool. Yeah, I'll have to go with Bravos.
Okay, looks like Bravos wins 3-2-1 there. Good job on Bravo. Yeah, you really know where you could show like a street there and without showing any characters, and I think you would know. It's like, oh, that's Bravos. Yeah, which is a good sign. Good sign. Okay, let's a couple of very book-centric topics here as we get to the end of our questions as we move towards our trailer discussion and the end of our award show in general. The biggest plot omission. So some of these it's kind of hard to exactly describe some of these things with just a single title. And some of these we've kind of touched on with character cuts, but this makes it a bit of a tricky category. So let's go with first nominee is the Pink Letter / Mance to Winterfell. Those are kind of connected items. Aegon VI, that whole plot line, we talked about that quite a bit. The Siege of Meereen, including the Battle of Fire, which is unlikely to happen. Jaime going through the Riverlands, which includes all his time with Brienne, talking to the Blackfish, and all that other stuff, and with the Freys and everything. The Crowning of Myrcella, that plot line's completely gone. Instead of now it's a kill Myrcella plot. And that's it. So we have just those 5 nominees.
So I guess Aegon's probably going to sweep it again.
Quite possibly. There may be some clever arguments for something else, but yeah, given how that other category went, that might be what we're faced with.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Ashaya, we'll start with you for this one.
Well, I don't want to get the ball rolling on Aegon, but I gotta say I think he is. I just think so. I mean, if I'm going with the ones that just aren't in it, period, then the Crowning of Myrcella, because like it is in it, and it would have made a lot more sense in a lot of ways. But
yeah, you're allowed to decide what biggest omission means, kind of to yourself.
Yeah, because like Aegon VI is just like a whole character crew, like huge omission, whereas Crowning of Myrcella was possible for them to do with what they had.
Yeah, they went in a different direction anyway. Yeah,
same with the Pink Letter and Mance to Winterfell is also possible, and Jaime and the Riverlands, all the other ones, but Aegon is like one that's just not in it at all, so it doesn't like feel fair to
There wasn't even a replacement for it. Yeah.
I still think I'm gonna go with Aegon. It's just too huge.
Okay. Right. All right, Tony. What do you think?
I think that a couple of them could still happen, so I'm going to leave those ones out that's possible that I think could happen. I'm going to go with the Pink Letter. I think should have been in it. It should have had it. I've had several videos on the Pink Letter and a lot of debate over the Pink Letter. The most debate over the forums by far is over the pink letter of who wrote it.
It is
So
it is a hotly
wish they would've
debated
did
topic. Okay, Stefan, what do you think?
I simply stay with Aegon for the reasons I laid down earlier.
Okay, yolkboy.
Yeah, I kind of want to say Aegon again, but just to be different, I want to say Jaime in the Riverlands, because it really ties to Lady Stoneheart, I think. So they don't seem to be just omitting Jaime in the Riverlands. They seem to be completely omitting the Riverlands, the phrase, Lady Stoneheart. As far as we know, anyway. I mean, that's a huge, huge cut.
That's true. Very good point.
It's a butterfly effect from not having Jaime go into the Riverlands.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Wish I'd heard it before I made my vote. I maybe would have gone with Jaime.
Yeah, because you're a Stoneheart.
Because I love Stoneheart. It's true.
All right, Lady Gwyn, what do you think?
Well, they haven't managed to stomp out my last flicker of hope for the Riverlands arc yet. So I'm going to go with Aegon, even though all of these things had big impacts on the overall. Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go with Aegon as well, because of this, for the same reasons, basically. But I do also agree with the Jaime and the Riverlands thing, and I agree with the general commentary that some of these things still have a chance to happen. Aegon the Sixth, I guess, even technically has a small chance to happen, but I really don't see it. The Pink Letter does not have a chance to happen anymore. Neither does the Crowning of Myrcella. But Jaime and the Riverlands could happen. Siege of Meereen isn't going to happen. But I don't know. What the other thing that makes it difficult is we don't know the end result of the Pink Letter. We don't know the end result of Jaime and the Riverlands. We don't know the end result of the Crowning of Myrcella. But we don't know the end result of Aegon the Sixth either. But we do know how much is missing because of it. So I'm going to go with Aegon the Sixth as well.
All right.
Which gives that Gwyn the win.
Didn't quite sweep.
No sweep. 4 out of 6 though. It was very strong.
Also, that's the reason why Jon gets stabbed is the Pink Letter.
You're right. You're right. We talked about that a lot in our weekly reviews. How that was one of the motivations was missing for that, and we even asked our Unsullied show reviewer about whether he thought whether they did it right, whether there was enough motivation to kill Jon, and he was okay with it, but he saw some flaws with it. So anyway, all right.
So moving on to the biggest spoiler, which has to be prefaced by saying that this is so subjective, how you look at spoilers, what you consider a spoiler. So I'll mention each one, and we'll see. For instance, Stannis' death and that he loses a major battle versus the Boltons. Maybe that means something in the books, but maybe it doesn't. I'm of the mind that I'm not letting much of it affect my opinion. Period. I don't they could just have chosen to kill him. It doesn't mean that he lost the battle in the books. But that is one. And so when giving your answers, maybe which one you consider the most of a spoiler is a good way to judge it.
Yeah, I think so.
Shireen burning, which is, they had that inside the episode, which is a huge part of it. Hizdahr not being the Harpy.
Mm-hmm.
Valyrian steel, which, again, implied in the books, but we don't know if that's... It just...
Could be a shortcut. Yeah, it could be simplification.
Yeah, that's the one I was like, I don't know if we should include that. But, and then... I think the biggest spoiler is that Jaime's going to Dorne. But obviously, they're
going to do that whole thing over again.
Oh.
It's going to be a time travel plot line.
Yeah. So let's start with Lady Gwyn.
The Shireen thing, because of the inside the episode discussion. That's the only one I think we can reliably say has been spoiled. So.
Yolkboy?
Yes, Shireen burning is the only one I consider a spoiler on the list.
Cool.
That's it. It's simple as that.
I agree with that. Stefan, what about you?
I also think that Shireen is the only spoiler we have on the list because it was confirmed. Everything else is... You simply can't say it. That's the beauty of Season 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Tony?
Yeah, Shireen is the spoiler on the list, but I think the number one thing they ruined, not ruined, but confirmed, is Sir Robert Strong is the Mountain. I mean, that was never confirmed until right now, really, that everyone thought, but that's confirmation. That's what it is.
That's true.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that because I consider it to be just such a certainty, but you are right. That's interesting. Aziz.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with the Shireen thing because there's a good enough... Every other thing has enough reason to suspect something
Has
could
no
be different.
flexibility.
But yeah, flexibility is a good term for it. Yeah, and even like Hizdar not being the Harpy, even Hizdar could.
Yeah, he could still be the Harpy.
There doesn't have to be a Harpy, and
yeah.
he could just be part of this, conspiracy or whatever.
Yeah. Valyrian Steel, every one of those is, I can think of a way to justify it.
Some I actively suspect are not spoilers. Like, I think the Valyrian Steel thing, I think, is a semi-spoiler. I think Valyrian Steel is useful against the others, but I don't think it's just one touch and it blows them into smithereens, I don't think it's quite like that. And so the other thing about just the spoilers in general, it's just quick commentary on that, is that it's not just something that we know happens, it's something that we suspect happens. Like, I think it's a spoiler if you go through the books now suspecting something might be different because of what you saw in the show. Like, your brain wouldn't have even gone there if the show wasn't there. Even if you have a healthy doubt for it, it's still going to impact how you view the material later. So I'll go with Shireen burning though, because just the showrunner just flat out saying something that George told them is.
Yeah.
It's hard to top that.
Yeah, I have to agree. I wouldn't have even considered that to be a spoiler if they hadn't said. If they just said, when George told us this happened, I'm like, yeah, well, of course she's going to burn. I already thought she was going to burn. Something was going to happen with that. But for them to couch it in the way that Stannis did it, and there's really no flexibility there for him being involved, that definitely has to be it for me. That's the only clear spoiler.
Yeah.
So that one sweeps.
All right.
Shireen's burning.
Okay, so let's see. So we're moving, this is kind of a segue question. We're moving towards the end. We're going to allow ourselves to go over time just a little bit. So let's talk about the stuff that's heading towards next season. So this is kind of moving outside of Season 5, but some of it is things that we know is coming. But what are we most looking forward to? I've only got 3 nominees for most looking forward to new location for Season 6. So the nominees are Old Town, the Iron Islands, and new northern locations. We don't know exactly where else in the north we're going to see, but casting leaks have shown that there's going to be a lot of action in the north. We're going to see some new northern locations. They haven't been specified. But the north is cool, so that's the least specific nomination, but it definitely deserves on the list. So I'll start with myself this time. Unless you guys have anything else that needs to be added to this category, do we miss anything?
Yeah, the Dothraki Sea is missing, because we know for sure that Dany will have seeds in the Dothraki Sea.
That's a good point. We'll add that on there. Okay, Dothraki Sea definitely of the season, and we're almost certainly going to see more of it next season. Well, we're definitely going to see more of it next season. Definitely. Can't imagine she just like flashback. Oh yeah, remember when I was on the Dothraki Sea?
That would be great, though.
I'd be like, whoa. That's not the kind of flashback we thought we were getting. We thought we were going to go like way back. Okay, so let's see. I'll start with myself on this one. I am really looking forward to the Iron Islands, but I don't think it'll be as cool looking. But I think Old Town has the potential to look really, really fantastic. So I'm going to go with Old Town. Tony, what do you think? What are you most looking forward to next season? Location?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Ironborn, but Old Town. I want to see Old Town. Really, right. Old Town and Casterly Rock would be the 2 things I would love to see more than anything.
Casterly Rock. Yeah.
That's another thing that we should be seeing coming up. I think they hold by what's supposed to happen in the books.
We should
see Casterly Rock.
That's right. Okay, Stefan, what's your pick for a location you're most looking forward to?
I'm also looking forward to Old Town, but I'm pretty confident that we will also see some Ironborn in Old Town, so that's these
could be together. Yeah.
So I'm looking least forward to the Dothraki Sea, I have to say.
Okay, so that's a vote for Old Town.
Yeah.
All right, Yolkboy.
I'm just a neutral on this. I'm not. I just. I don't know. I don't kind of look forward to new things.
You're not looking forward to the show at all.
No, not in a kind of negative way. It's just something I just don't really do. So sorry, I'm neutral.
A pass. All right, Lady Gwyn.
Old Town. Yeah,
Old Town.
Definitely.
Looks like Old Town is crushing here. Ashaya?
My answer as well, although I'm pretty worried about what the hell they're going to do there, who they're going to cast, I don't know what to expect in terms of faceless men in Old Town, for instance.
Well, they even do that, yeah.
I doubt Sorella's there, but is Marwyn there? I just don't know what to expect, but I at the very least, I know seeing the High Tower, seeing Old Town itself will be awesome. So that...
Okay, now here's a question with no nominees. I'm just going to ask this question, and these are some questions that are kind of burning in the fandom, but they particularly relate to the show. They have their own answers in the books, but that's a whole other subject. So the first question, these are very related questions. The first one is, when will Dany arrive in Westeros, roughly, in the rest of the seasons? Assuming there's only 2 seasons, it's possible that they add another season. They do 8 seasons instead of 7. But let's just assume it's only 7. So I guess you could say early season 6, late season 6, early season 7. Basically, early, mid, or late season for 6 or 7 are the valid answers. Unless you want to name a specific episode, get crazy and just try to really nail it. I'll start with Stefan. What do you think?
Episode 10, last shot, next season.
Okay, very specific guess there. 6-10. All right. Tony, what do you think?
I would say 6-9. She would hit Dragonstone. She would her herself, not the full army, but her herself would land on there with the dragon.
Okay, right on. Yolkboy, what do you think?
If it is 7 seasons, they really have to get her there next season. So I'll say at the end of, like Tony and Stefan, the end of, a bit more vague, sometime near the end of season 6.
Okay, Lady Gwyn, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Stefan. I think it'll be the very end of next season.
She starts her caravan of ships and just dragons flying above. What do you think, Shay?
I gotta say, the thing that bothers me the most is I just can't see how it'll happen. I just can't see, even with Littlefinger's teleporter. There's so many steps to take. I just thinking about Daenerys and Dothraki see Tyrion, Tyrion and Varys rule Meereen, and she does her stuff for the first half of the season. She gets back mid-season, and then they just get off, and she gets there. I guess the finale of season 6, she has to be there at the end of season 6. I can't see any way for her to not be there next season.
Either be on her way or be just arriving.
Or they have another season.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to also cast my vote for, I'm going to be specific and agree with Stefan, say 6-10. I kind of thought myself it might even be the last shot. I kind of like Tony's idea of it being 1 episode shy, so they have a little room to see people's reactions for it. That would be fun to see. So, but I'm going to go ahead with 6-10.
Cool.
And okay, so this one we won't give an award for that one. We're just kind of giving the audience our thoughts on that one. Same question for Arya. Now, Arya is tougher to me because Dany's arrival in Westeros is heavily foreshadowed. We kind of know that it's going to be part of the larger arc. At least we all kind of suspect that to some degree or another. Arya, of the main characters, to me, is the hardest to figure out what she's going to do in the future because we know she's being trained to kill people, but who? Who's she going to go after? She could go anywhere in the entire continent. I could see an argument for her going anywhere from Dorne to the north. Certain locations seem more likely than others. We're not going to debate where she's going to go, but let's guess when she gets back to Westeros. I'll start with myself this time since I was last on the other one. I'm going to say that she comes back over a little sooner than Dany does. I'm going to say that she comes back over maybe as soon as mid-season 6, which is, I feel like that's going to be rushed. But the show rushes things all the time, so that's not out of line.
Okay.
Tony, what do you think?
I always thought that she was going to come back soon, after that Mercy chapter, that she was going to bounce back then, and they got Tyrell in the place over there. So I don't think she's going to come back with him because that's going to be too soon. But episode 4, episode 5, I think she's going to start heading back.
All right. Stefan, what do you think?
I also think mid-season sounds about right.
Okay. Yolkboy.
7 or 8 next season. I think she'll return to the north with another face.
Oh, okay. More specific prediction. I like that. All right. Lady Gwyn, what do you think?
Yeah, I also have specific ideas about what she's going to do, but I'll just stick with probably by the second half of the season. Maybe even as early as episode 6.
Okay. Ashaya, what do you think?
Am I allowed to mention stuff to do with casting yet? Or should I not give my answer? I'm affected by what I've read from casting. I have a theory.
Yeah, you can say that. So, folks, if you don't want to be spoiled on casting news, this is now the time.
Okay, so yes, please spoil us. But in terms of casting news, we know that there's an acting troupe that they're looking for, and so I'm thinking that Arya, they'll maybe have her join the acting troupe, All of Mercy, even though they already did that. But I'm thinking maybe she'll join them, and we know that they're looking for acting troops and mummers and stuff to go to Marine. So I'm thinking it's possible she'll go to Marine.
Wow.
And then make the drip do so. I don't know. I don't even know what Arya's going to do. I'm just was thinking about that, how she could travel far distances. She needs to be with people to make the travel. That's my theory.
Well, you can still guess for when she'll get to Westeros.
I think she'll to Westeros.
If she's going to Marine first, that means a long detour.
Yes, if she goes to Marine, I think she'll get there early mid next season, and then get to Westeros when Daenerys does, or be gone or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess if she does go to Marine, you think arriving at the same time as Dany makes sense.
Otherwise, I think she'll get there up to Westeros like episode 6 or 7.
Okay. Very good. Nice. Looks like other than that very interesting possibility Ashaya has introduced there, where it looks like we're mostly together on thinking it's going to be mid to late next season. So, nothing to do but wait and see how that goes. All right, so folks, we're going to do our credits, and then after that we're going to discuss the casting news a bit, a little more open discussion, no more awards, so to speak. So, thanks to our Hand of the King and First Lord Cash Craig, a.k.a. Vaxis, on the History of Westeros forums. The Warden of the North is Lord Parker, the Bastard of Starkville, Breaker of the First Stone. Our Warden of the West is Lord Jim, the Fortuitous, of Wars of A Song of Ice and Fire, Wars and Politics of A Song of Ice and Fire blog. Our Master of Coin and First Counselor is Lord Robert Jacobs. Master of Whispers is Lord James the Scholar. Grand Maester Itai wears the jeweled collar of many metals. Rosie the Clever is our Master of Laws. Lord James Tuttle is our Master of Ships. History of Westeros Lord Commander is George the Golden. History of Westeros Kingsguard is commanded by Lord Commander Shepard. Sir Troy the Steady swings the Valyrian Steel Blade Fate as History of Westeros' King's Justice. Lady Direliz of Castle Naki is the Alpha Patron, Lord Nathan of the Fire Fort. Dan of the Red Mountains, Lord of the Great Bell, and Breaker of the Second Stone. Lady April Lauren Boyd Stark, her castle still under construction. And Frontier Lord James Knox of the Poker Fort, Hammer of the Dornish Session.
That's funny.
Rounds out our list of lordly lords. We've got Stefan has to step out, so we're going to go ahead and also go around the room real quick and say goodbye and let everyone reintroduce themselves and tell people where to find them. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'll start with you, Stefan, because you've got to run.
Yeah, once again, I'm Stefan Sasse. I am a essayist for the Tower of the Hand, which you probably know, and I have my own blog at thenerdstreamera.blogspot.com, on which I talk about all kinds of stuff, but also host the Supreme Court of Westeros with Amin Javadi, who is in turn the podcast of Ice and Fire host, so lots of names to throw around.
Yeah.
It's after midnight here in Germany. I now really have to split and go to bed. So it was a lot of fun to talk to you, and thanks for the participation.
All right, yeah, thanks for being here, Stefan. We'll hopefully have you on again and work together at some point in the future.
Yeah,
and
it was a great
of course,
time. Everyone should definitely check out all of those.
Yeah, and of course, Stefan and Ashaya and I also work together on Hymn for Spring, the Tower of the Hand book, so check his contributions out to that as well. All right, we're going to still do our trailer discussion here, but let's go ahead and go through everyone else real quick and say your goodbyes in case people want to drop off and not hear the spoiler information. So, Radio Westeros guys, why don't you tell us where to find you?
Yeah, come and check out Radio Westeros podcast at radiowesteros.com. We've also got a YouTube channel, Radio Westeros. Come and check us out.
Right on. And Tony Teflon, tell everyone where to find you.
Yeah, you know who I am, Tony Teflon the Don. Yeah, you can find me on my Teflon TV at House Teflon is the name of the YouTube channel, because you can't change it when you set it, and I don't know why they let you do that. But I do Game of Thrones theories, videos, and recaps and everything else. And I also have a new children's book out with the heavyweight champion of the world, Deontay Wilder, that you can find in Barnes and Noble.
Nice.
So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know you were an author until I saw your Twitter and oh, Tony's children's book author. That's awesome.
Yeah. Tony, I was a children's book seller for 15 years, so that's very exciting.
Yeah, you were. Nice. Hey, see, you have a lot in common except for your banning teams.
That's right. It's not just Game of Thrones around here.
Yeah. So everyone, you can get these links. They're in the description for the video and the event. Everyone's links are there as well.
Okay, so let's talk some casting news for folks who have stuck around for that. Looks like most of the live audience is still sticking around. So
start with the Marine stuff. I know we have the Brothers
Sure,
stuff, but I'm still thinking about that.
Let's go ahead with that.
Well, first we had the Red Priestess Kinvara.
That's a big one.
Did any of you guys watch the video or read the transcript? Should I not get into details?
Get into everything.
Yeah, get into
You guys are fine,
I
okay.
think they're all caught up. Yeah, cool.
So it seems that Kinvara is a replacement for like Bonero, Makoro. It seems that the Red Temple is pretty female-dominated from what we've seen, other than Thoros.
Yeah, that's true. That's 3 out of 4 Red Priests on the show.
It makes sense to kind of keep that going, I think. It's easier for a woman to be so magnetic and intense-looking. So we have her talking to Tyrion and Varys, which is interesting, and maybe they change things, or maybe it's not what we see in the show, but it probably is. And so we probably an early-ish scene with them.
It's clear that Daenerys is still missing at that point, and that they're looking for ways to control the population, keep people in line, and religion seems to be the way
I'm going to say it's probably the first or second episode. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Because it's really early if we're thinking Daenerys is going to still be able to get to Westeros. And she says that she'll bring mummers to the city and more priests and stuff like that. And so my big question is, mummers, we saw a casting call for the acting troupe, a whole acting troupe, and we know Arya interacts with actors, but so maybe that's part of Arya's storyline, maybe it's part of the Marine storyline, or maybe it's both.
Maybe that's how they introduce Penny. I really don't think they need Penny on the show, but
Penny.
that doesn't seem necessary. But what do you guys think, Tony or Lady Gwyn or yolkboy? Do you have thoughts on the Kinvara scene or this leak in general?
Yeah.
I think, please, ladies first.
No, I pretty much agree with what you said, although I hadn't thought about the Arya thing.
Yeah, I admit that kind of went over my head too.
I knew that it was an Arya interacting with an acting troupe, and then when in that video they asked for the mummers, they said they were going to bring mummers, so I thought, okay, maybe it is an Arya, and I kind of just conflated the two.
That did stand out to me, that thing about the mummers. So
Well, Tony, what did you think?
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I never thought about the Arya connection there, but it's like I said, I thought that they were going to do the Mercy chapter next year. I thought they were going to have that without a doubt. But I didn't know how she'd get back, because I always thought that she would get back with the person that really went there to get her, and with Justin Massey or something like that. But I think that, no, she's going to go back now. It sounds good to go over there with Dany. It sounds maybe she'll be a turn from one of those people to a sellsword, and then just join the troop, come back with Dany.
That's cool. A lot of possibilities there.
Yeah.
my head's a little spinning.
I like the idea of Arya performing that play for Tyrion.
Oh man, with Bonobo and the giant cock and everything.
It would just be like, yes, that would be so perfect. I would just be happy. Oh, that would make it for me. But yeah, I think that's really all there is to say about that. Other than it's pretty exciting that we're gonna have.
There aren't any other new castings for Marine in general, right?
No, we just got that priestess. We did have the priestess casting as well as the video we saw for her. But I don't think there were any other Myronese castings that we can tell. Of course. So I guess we should move on to
let's talk about
the Brother Without Banners.
It could be it might be the Brother Without Banners, although none of the names are familiar, which might mean it's just some other group of outlaws.
And there's one of them is listed as a leader.
Yeah, but it does sound like they used to be good guys that turned bad guys, which is why I think of the Brotherhood, because that's clearly what's happening in Feast. And also what seems to be happening is that this could be happening, well, it should be happening in the Riverlands. Of course, if they're not the Brotherhood Without Banners, there's a lot of other places they could be, but there's other indications we'll be in the Riverlands next season, given the casting of Elder Brother, which is an interesting question. Since their Elder Brother is cast, are we going to see Sandor? Is Sandor going to still be alive in the show?
It seems like a combination character.
Yeah.
Elder Brother does.
With Maribald?
With Maribald to me. And I still think there is some flexibility with it really being very significantly different than what we're expecting.
And the other reason I do think Riverlands is highly likely is because Arya still has Walder Frey on her list.
Yeah.
And they haven't forgotten that he exists. And Arya's list has gotten shorter. The names that just fell off. She was naming them and then she stopped naming them. But it was reduced to 4 names this season. One of them is Robert Strong, or Robert the Mountain, and he's a zombie now or whatever. And one of them was Meryn Trant. She got him. So it's just Walder and Cersei. That's the only 2 names left on her list, really, unless she is the one who kills the Mountain somehow, that re-kills him. So what are any takes from you guys, Tony or Radio Westeros team, about the potential for the Riverlands?
Yeah, I think we get the Riverlands with this. I'm hoping we get the Riverlands. Hope we get Jaime there, too. And I'm hoping for Lady Stoneheart. I think there's a possibility for all of that with that casting. So hopefully they listen to people, or they've listened, went on forums and seeing what they did wrong and trying to get it right now and do that.
What are some other possibilities, by the way? This is another question I want to throw out for you guys in general, is who is going to be our point of view there? Right? Jamie is a good suggestion, but I also think there's a possibility that Sam and Gilly are our viewpoint in the Riverlands.
Because they headed out on their cart.
Yeah, they headed out on a cart, not by ship.
That was my concern for them, is them traveling the country in that cart by themselves.
Sam is not exactly a fighter, is he?
No,
so Ghost isn't with them.
Right. It's just going to be down to Gilly. I can see them falling afoul of some, bandits in the Riverlands, and that's a pretty big plot point for a couple episodes, probably.
So here's another question: Where are we going to see Randall Tarley? Are we going to see him near Old Town because Horn Hill is somewhat near Old Town, or are we going to see him in the Riverlands where he is in Feast because he's at Maidenpool hanging outlaws? Right. That could be. We could see him. Sam and Gilly could run into him on their way south rather than in the south, and that's kind of different than what we had probably a lot of us initially expected.
Of course, we also have the casting of Sam's family.
Right.
Which, again, doesn't mean that he doesn't see Randall in the Riverlands, and then his father, says, go home, bring this child to our house. Or, it doesn't mean that they have to be together. But it could mean that we're just going to see Randall at home.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, I think the presence of the family kind of does lean it towards him seeing them in the south, or them seeing them in the south, meeting them in the south.
Yeah.
I guess there's also a small chance Brienne and Podrick are in the Riverlands, but that doesn't seem very likely. With Sansa still being in the north, they'd have to go back south. I
don't think that's super likely.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But I do think it's possible for Jamie to get back to King's Landing for him to then go off there. It makes a lot of sense. What else is he going to do?
Yeah.
So maybe Jamie's going to run into Sam and Gilly? No. I don't think he'll get there soon enough.
Any other thoughts on the Riverlands from you guys?
Anyone?
Yeah, no, I think it's like 50-50 for Randall Tarley being there. I think that would be the best way to handle it, to have Sam either see him or run across him unexpectedly there. Unfortunately, I fear that they're probably going to skip that and just have him be at home at Horn Hill.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. What is Euron Greyjoy going to look like? Is he going to be a combination? It doesn't seem to be Aeron being cast. And, of course, Victarion is almost an afterthought at this point because I think we all probably predicted that they would combine Victarion and Euron into one character.
I think I saw some people theorizing that the priest character that we think is elder brother Maribald was going to be something to do with Aeron.
That didn't. I can't remember the description, but that didn't seem likely.
It doesn't seem very likely, but I don't think it's impossible. I thought I'd mentioned that people have been theorizing that.
So what I'm looking for here is some general thoughts on what we might expect from the Ironborn next season. Any thoughts out there? Have you guys put a lot of thought into this, or any thought into this?
I think Euron might just show up to take Dany across.
Really?
You think so?
No Kingsmoot?
Deus Ex Cross-Eye.
I think that we get the death of Balon finally with Euron showing up. I think they'll kill Balon off, and then Euron show up in the Iron Lands.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can get a King's Moot. That's what I would love to see. If I could get anything, I would love to see a King's Moot. Maybe we can get that.
Yeah,
that would be so cool.
So, what do we think? Do we think we're going to see Ashai, Balon, and Euron in the Iron Islands next season?
Yeah,
Is that
I
what we're going
to
to see? Then we're going to. It seems to me that with Old Town, we're getting some Ironborn action with Old Town. The question remains whether Euron will be in Old Town, whether he'll be dealing with Daenerys, both, whether Asha will end up dealing with Old Town. I don't know. I do think the Ironborn are going to interact with Old Town based on them casting, just based on both of them being added this season.
Yeah, isn't that kind of interesting? We've got the Ironborn appearing, and we're not entirely sure whether we'll get a Kingsmoot, whether they'll be at Old Town, whether they'll be at Marine. That's a really broad. It's almost like Arya, like she could go anywhere.
Yeah, it is.
And a lot of us thought that the Ironborn were cut entirely back when Dario made his I captured 93 Marinese ships, and 93 is the exact number of ships that Victarion left with, and it seemed like a nod to that. But
it could just mean that they're making it so that Euron doesn't have to go all the way to Daenerys, and that they'll interact in Westeros.
Oh, or they'll meet in Volantis,
he'll do his Old Town thing this season, or something.
There's a lot of different possibilities there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. Unless there's any more thoughts on those possibilities there, we can go ahead and talk about
flashback.
big flashback moment, which appears to be the Tower of Joy. We're going to get some sort of Tower of Joy action, one way or the other. We're almost certainly seeing Arthur Dayne cast, and a key component of his casting is that they are looking for somebody who's seriously good with a sword,
The
like
best
real life.
swordsman in-
Yeah, that's what it said, like best in Europe. So they're clearly going to be showcasing some actual swordsmanship, which begs the question: who the hell is he going to be fighting against? Who's this guy he's fighting? Is it's not? Yeah, is it going to be Sean Bean made to look young, or is it? Yeah, like
I don't know.
what do you guys think? Is it
Is it gonna be?
is it just exciting, or is it? Do we have some other thoughts on
I
it?
think we're gonna see Howland Reed with him. I don't think it's gonna be just Ned versus Arthur Dayne. They mentioned Howland Reed. I don't think there's gonna be a whole bunch of people with him, but I think it'll be 2 people versus Arthur Dayne, which is still kind of crazy for them to defeat him like that. But I think it'll be those 2, and so they're gonna have to cast a young Sean Bean.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. What are some other thoughts? What do you guys think? Arthur Dayne, excited?
I want to see a normal Sean Bean, just with a bit of makeup or something.
Just bring Sean Bean back. We'll know soon enough because the guy can't keep his mouth shut. So.
Yeah, he's they're like, gosh, we should bring Sean Bean back, but man, he talks too much.
But just don't tell him.
We also have the children.
Oh yeah, the young castings. It looks like young Robert, but so far no leaks of a casting of young Lyanna.
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they can get around that. They got to have Lyanna, right? Or
I would think so. I think they're going all out with the R+L=J. I think they're pushing it. They're telling everybody this is what it is, and it always seemed to me that he was more like Achilles, he was really that good, and that's how he died. Some weak guy just shot him with an arrow. So I think that's what's going to happen to him with Howland Reed. He's going to go out just like Achilles went out, the best sword fighter, taken out by some weak guy in the background, just shoots a dart.
That's a cool parallel. Achilles, yeah, that is really interesting. I always imagined he did some sort of Kranigman trick, which is one of those possibilities is a poison arrow. I thought maybe a net to trip him up. Something along those lines. And there's also the crackpot idea that it wasn't a fighting thing, which, the show isn't going to do. I don't think the show would do something like this, but where Howland Reed convinces them to stop fighting. But, yeah, that's a stretch.
Then Howland Reed married Ashura Dayne, too.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as we're going crackpot, may as well go all the way, right?
Yeah. I think it's possible we don't have to see a casting call for Lyanna. Although you think there'd be 2 Lyanna casting calls because we have like a younger version of her, and then we have those 2 flashbacks. But I think it's possible that for Tower of Joy age Lyanna, they just have someone already. They just did a private thing. They already knew they wanted. It's possible, or we're going to see the casting call come out soon. I don't know why it wouldn't have come. I mean, I guess the legendary swordsman thing is much harder to cast than Lyanna.
Yeah, you can't keep that quiet when you're looking for a real life amazing swordsman. That's too rare.
It's such a huge thing.
Too niche.
So
yeah.
I guess we'll see if we'll see any more casting calls, but I think it's possible they just know who they want.
That's possible. It's also interesting to note that
We lost Gwyn.
there won't be a 7-on-3, but I think we all kind of expected that. Once you think about it, it's like, well, they always kind of reduce those things. Instead of 7 versus 3,
of fighting.
law of conservation of fighters at the Tower of Joy. It makes sense that it would be 2 or 3 on 1 rather than 7-on-3. So no Gerald Dane, no Oswell Went, no Bat guy.
Gerald Dane? You mean Gerald Hightower?
Jared Hightower. I've already covered no Gerald Dane.
Not him
not what I
either.
meant.
Right.
Got my Geralds mixed up there. Okay, so let's talk about let's close out this episode with one final question, and that is, which of these new characters is everyone most looking forward to? So out of all the characters we've named, rehash, Randall Tarley, Elder Brother, Arthur Dane,
Young
Ned is a possibility, Kinvara,
young
Robert, yeah, any of the young characters. Who are you most looking forward to out of this list? Season 6. Also, Euron is a possibility. So, Lady Gwyn, who are you most looking forward to next season?
The Arthur Dane, just due to my RLJ love. It's my roots in the fandom. And, I don't know, I was gone for a couple minutes, my internet dropped out, but I wanted to say that casting of Arthur Dayne, to me, is the biggest spoiler that Jon Snow is really coming back. I mean, come on.
Isn't that one of the funny things about spoilers? Like, George just gets to keep everything in his head, and, that's it. He doesn't have to, if he doesn't tell people, then no one knows. But the show, like, there's like hundreds of people in the know, and there's cameras and actors on set, and all these things that they just, it's another world.
It is another world.
Okay, so, Yolkboy, what about your pick? Most looking forward to?
Young Ned, come on. I couldn't get enough of Ned. Come on, I'd give anything. I'd give any kind of Ned.
I would be the longest character gone absent from the show. See, I appeared in Season 1 and Season 6 as a younger version of myself, 5 years of real life later. Tony, who are you most looking forward to next?
Sir Arthur Dayne. I want to see the sword. I just want to see the sword.
And I'm glad they mentioned in the casting call that he has a famous sword, so that means they might be including that.
Yeah,
I hope so. Shay, what about you?
I'm looking forward to not Arthur Dayne in particular. I'm looking forward to the Tower of Joy, the whole stuff. Howland Reed, if he's in it, young Ned. Looking at all of that as a whole. In particular, I really want Septon Mirabald's speech.
Oh,
if we get him combined with Elder Brother, I want that speech. So that's what I'm most looking forward to, is his speech.
I think there's a decent chance we get something kind of like it. Because I think even the showrunners should know that speech was big, that it was important. Like, they're not, that we criticize them, but I think they'll recognize that as great writing.
Mention all the Northern Lords.
Well, we don't know who they are.
Yeah, we don't know who they are, but we didn't really talk about them much at all.
That's true. We could talk. Yeah, that's true. We didn't really talk about them. There's some. Okay, so there's a cunning, ruthless Northern Lord who's of a smaller house, and then some sort of Glover sounding.
There's a big.
Or not Glover. Sorry, but Umber sounding. Yeah.
There's a big guy. It's so weird. They say he has to tower over. This is the weird thing. The casting call says he needs to tower over everyone. But he's only, they said he has to be at least 180 centimeters. That isn't very tall. That's like it's like 6 feet. That's
you don't tower
Sophie
over.
Turner, by comparison, Sophie Turner is 175 centimeters or so. So, like, at least to me, that means that he's not in a scene with Sophie Turner.
Right.
To tower over Kit Harington, though.
Yeah, almost tower over, like, Rick On.
Right.
And shorter actors, is my guess. Just kind of notable, I guess.
I actually think it's possible that this. Okay, so and then the casting for the Umber sounding Lord is a little interesting because it says like age 25 to 50.
Right.
That's broad. Yeah. I think they might be open to replace Great John or just say, okay, well, we got a cool younger guy, we're gonna have him be Small John. But if it's not, if they got an older guy, they'll just make him the new Great John.
New Great John.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But I think that's definitely a number. And the other one, they might just be going a different direction with Manderley and making this Manderley plot run through a smaller house, not introducing Lightharbor. Yeah, some skinny guy instead of a big, huge dude, which probably is harder for them to cast. I don't know.
I gotta say, next season, I'll know when we do this award show type thing again.
Yeah.
I already know they're not gonna have Willa Manderley, and I already know she's gonna be my #1 missing character.
Yeah.
Green-haired Willa.
Yeah.
Missing.
And if she was in it, I would have said Willa's green hair, because I know they won't have green hair.
Well, I answer my own question as well. I am also most looking forward to Sir Arthur Dayne partly because it's such an important part of the plot, but also because they're specifically looking for someone who's good at sword fighting in real life, which means that, well, this does set the expectations higher. The bar is set. You're getting a real swordsman. That means we expect a really good action scene. So expectations are higher, which means disappointment is more likely, but it also means that the awesomeness quotient is way up there, which is great. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to the new characters. Looking forward to see what they do with Elder Brother and Randall as well. I don't know if there's as much. That's kind of harder for me to figure. There's more possibilities there, but
I'm real excited to see what they do with all the maesters.
Yeah, the maesters as well. Old Town. There's one maester who's like a weakling. That's been cast,
but that could be like a northern maester.
It could be anywhere.
Who knows? If one maester, it seems likely that he's not like the main maester in Old Town. Is my guess. That's my prediction.
Okay, well, this is no 5.5-hour episode, but it is longer than our usual. We have restrictions on episode length and editing length, but because this episode on audio only is just going to be one track rather than us trying to mix together 7 different vocal tracks. That actually is going to make it smaller, whereas normally it would be larger. So we had a little leeway here. But that's it, folks. We're done. We're done with Season 5. We will be returning to book-centric topics for the rest of the year up until next season starts. We're basically a 75% books coverage, 25% show coverage, seems like is how we're working out these days. 3 months of the year TV show, 9 months of the year books. But we did put out a book episode during the TV season, so it's a little more, even more book-centric than that.
Which we could tell that this TV season was dominating everything based on, like, here's our Veil preview chapter right here, and the other one just, woo, right there.
This is bad, but no, people still, the TV show is what dominates the fandom this time of year. And
we learned our lesson on releasing book episodes.
That's right.
So did I.
So what's up? Let's go ahead and close out with everyone talk about what's up next for them on their channels. Tony, what's up next for you? What are the next few subjects you're covering over there on Teflon TV?
Well, I'm doing how the Song of Ice and Fire will end. I'm doing that, and I'm also doing another Season 5 wrap-up thing there. But mostly I'm doing how the Song of Ice and Fire will end. Talking more, this one is about the Starks, Jon Snow, Targaryens, and the Children of the Forest.
All right, cool. Looking forward to that one. We'll be checking that out as well. And Radio Westeros, what do you guys have coming up?
Well, we have just released our Battle of Fire episode, and we're going to follow it up with Daenerys. Then we have a deep dive into Tywin Lannister.
Oh, yes.
And we're starting to research Theon and The North Remembers, 2 separate episodes.
Very cool.
Sounds great. You guys can remember that Aziz made an appearance on their Battle of Fire episode.
That's right, and I will be making an appearance on their Tywin episode as well in a different capacity. I will be playing the Reigns of Castamere on classical guitar for that episode.
That's what Aziz has his degree in.
Dusting off my old music skills. I haven't put that to use in a while, so that'll be fun.
We're very excited.
And like I said at the beginning of our episode, what's coming up next for us is the next Blackfire episode. It'll be focused on Daemon Blackfire himself, and we'll be having Stephen Atwell back as a guest for that. And we'll be following that up with episodes on Bittersteel and Bloodraven and the Redgrass Field itself. And we'll also be working on the Tragedy of Summerhall and our support group book episode for dealing with what may or may not be a spoiler in the show. And that's kind of an ongoing process. I haven't exactly figured out how I'm going to do that yet. There weren't quite as many spoilers as we might have thought. And as we talked about this episode, there are things that probably aren't spoilers that might be. But that's part of the point, is to discuss those things and to some people are worried. Some people are very anxious about those things. And it might help to hear our takes on why those things aren't spoilers. So that was a longer explanation than I needed for that episode. But thanks to our great guests. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Lady Gwyn. Thank you, Yolkboy. Thanks to Stefan and Steve the FriggenItalian, who had to drop off early.
Those
Stephs. Always leaving early. Something about that name. No, just kidding. Thanks to everybody for joining. Thanks to the people who watched us live. And thanks for everyone who went through Season 5 with us. We'll be back for Season 6, and we'll certainly be back very soon with book-centric topics, which we're very eager to get back to. So thanks to everybody, and Valar Morghulis.